So that's what they did. They were trying to determine wetlands, and they did it on all the area projects. So they did that. So that's done. Sometime, though it's not happening in June, because I haven't seen it yet. In July, we'll have conceptual and preliminary designs on what they plan to do to solve the 4 problems. Then in August, the 2 things in August, one is on a work session. We will include everybody that's involved in the community, the town, the road agent, the residents around those areas. They plan their short drive to go over what they're going to do and take input, look at the plan, make suggestions. Same thing with the design work session. That goes a little further and do the same thing. All meetings that we have, whether it's on the grant and here, are open to the public. Absolutely. Then in August, later in August, we're going to do, they will start filing a wetlands permit because they'll have to do a wetlands permit, at least for the rain garden and for what we do at the Lakeland Beach area. Then the final deliverable means this is what they're going to do. And October, November is when we actually start digging, whatever is decided. We encourage those residents in those areas to come and participate. Next on the agenda is our milfoil mitigation program. That's been going on since how long, Kate?
Since like 1990 something.
Yeah, I think it was 1987, it might be.
There you go.
So what do? We used to test once a year, once a season. But now we're doing it 3 times. And this is a milfoil. I'm getting mixed up with our peanut. This is a milfoil. If you live on the lake, you saw last week maybe the disbursement of a herbicide, which is in what we call Pinkham Cove. This year, it's right here. This year, the milfoil, based on surveys last year, was so thick that the state recommended, or actually said, that we should do a herbicide treatment. The last herbicide treatment we did was in 2019, using the same herbicide, which is approved by the EPA, which is approved by DES, the state. They came and they come with like an airboat and they spray it and it falls down. The only criteria was that you stay out of the water for 6 hours. Boating was okay. And if anybody used water for irrigation, don't use it, but for a week. So we're pretty much done. In top of that, we also had divers come in the last week or so. There's the area that where the herbicide treatment was done. The last time it was done was very successful. There's a lot of milfoil in that area, but if you see all those red dots, that's where the milfoil has been detected, and the heaviest concentration that the divers went into is what I call, we now call Dowling Cove, right there. Very thick, very thick. So they took out in the last 3 days almost 200 gallons of milfoil, which is quite a bit. And that's not going into Pinkham Cove at all. They will be sending a report on what they took, what they did, and we'll be getting invoices shortly. Okay, this is the milfoil mitigation program. There's the herbicide that is used. 3 days of hand pulling, I mentioned that. The grant is a 50% reimbursement of costs. The treatment cost for the herbicide is about $11,000 before the grant. And hand pulling estimated cost is $6,000, which is 50% would be $3,000 out of our cost. The town has a expendable trust fund, which we thank the residents of Middleton and supplying that during town meeting, and we have sufficient funds in there to cover most of that. We should be okay. Bumble. It's okay, Ken. Okay, the lake assessment. This is water testing, which I started to get to. It has been a program that's been around for a long time. We now do 3 tests. We sample in June, July, and August. We test for phosphorus and E. coli, and there's other things we test for. But the phosphorus and the E. coli are the only tests that we pay for. We go around and we collect about, how many sites? 10, 12, maybe?
At least 10.
10, and I'll show you where the sites are. We collect samples, we take the samples up to the New Hampshire State Lab, they test us, and they get back to us. We did June 9th was our first test collection, and they should be shortly with the results. And when we get those results, we publish those on the town website. These are the sites that we test. And a new site, that's not very clear. This is Lake Land up here. These are Nicola beaches, 1 and 2. Those are the town beaches down there. So we go around and we dig up the water, we put up the water, we put them in bottles and keep them cold, and we run them up to Concord for testing. This is the result last year. And if you can see the Lakelands Association, DD refers to the drainage ditch that runs along underneath Lakeshore Drive, underneath. That ditch, Steve, you can tell me, that ditch doesn't run unless there's a real heavy rain or a lot.
Real heavy rain, yeah, like a ½ inch or above.
Yeah, otherwise, but it's coming from uphill and it's bringing a lot of stuff. And that number 59 was, it's high. It's high. It's not to a point where something is going to be close, but it's high. So phosphorus contributes. Phosphorus is getting reasonably high, although we'll show you it's gone down a little bit. So we're going to do some more testing on E. coli around that area to find out where that might be coming from. This is a chart from way back. You can't see that too well. But you can see the red line is phosphorus. Phosphorus is the main thing that brings a lot of nutrients into the lake. And you'll probably think about that. And you can see we had a big spike in 2011. Then it kind of worked out. The red line is kind of the average. Don't go over that. And you can see in 21, 22, we kind of went up, and now we're coming down a little bit, but we're still high. The lake, the reason for the management plan is we want to reduce these loads by 20%. It's going to take us 10 years. Various projects, whatever they may be, culvert, water, stormwater management, to try to reduce the loads. And the state knows how to calculate the loads based on the test, so forth and so on. So they'll keep track of it. You can see the green and the chlorophyll. That does contribute to cyanobacteria. We have more chlorophyll. So you saw a big spike in 22. We had some stuff. So then 24 kind of went up and it's kind of down. I haven't seen any major, I haven't. I live on Shore Drive this year so far. As a matter of fact, after the 2 days of heat we had, nothing. Kind of shocked me a little bit. Let me talk about the lake assessment program. So that is, we published that. That should be on there also. Okay, cyanobacteria. Like I said, I haven't seen that much. There's been a change by the state in terms of how cyanobacteria is made public to the public when there is a bloom. If you see a bloom, you should call the state tell them there's a bloom. They'll ask you, okay, what does it look like? Can you send us a picture? Can you get a sample? If you can't do that, if it's significant enough, they might send some people out and make a collection. Then they go back and they test it within 24 hours. They don't know whether it's big, bad, or whatever. So in the past, if it was above a certain level of intensity, they would send out a warning and put it on the website. They would send out a warning to the town, to the health officer, that there is an advisory, the red sign. Remember seeing the red sign a couple times? They're not going to do that anymore. What they're going to do is, this was an informational sign that was put up for several years. And it just told you what cyanobacteria was about, what to do, what does it look like, harmful algae blooms, stay out of the water, don't let your animals in, and so forth and so on. So what they're doing now, was described to me as, now it's going to be self-awareness. This will be the only sign for cyanobacteria that you will see around. This should be posted at the town beach by the health officer, hopefully. Then any place else that want to post a sign. So all the associations, their private associations, I've gotten sign forms, so they will be able to post it. So what do you do if you see a bloom? You call, like before, you call it in. The state will say, fine, thank you very much, and what they will do, they'll put their results on what they call their mapper, and on here I'll show you how to get to it. And the mapper is kind of a geographic, topographical map, and you zero in on Sunrise Lake, and you hit it, and bingo, it'll tell you if there is a cyanobacteria advisory, warning, whatever. If you sign up for notices from DES in the sign-up, then you will get an alert. No longer, I don't think no longer are they going to say if there's a cyano bloom over where you are, Steve.
Yep.
We're shutting. Everybody was under the impression when the red signs went up, they went up over the lake was shut down. No, the lake is not shut down. It's an advisory that there is a heavy bloom over there. You be aware. That hasn't changed. Some places, if there's a bloom on the north end of the lake, northwest part of the lake, and down by there's nothing, you're fine. But it's now going to be your responsibility to find out the status of a cyano bloom. So don't get nervous about that. Sign up for the notices if you want to. I hope that the health officer does that, so at least he knows what's going on in terms of the town beach, and at least the staff of each association, I'm sure. I'm on that list too, so I'm back up for letting you know what that is. So these will be posted around the next week or so. Yes, sir?
This is new this year?
This is, yeah, this process is new. What they've eliminated is the signs. They've eliminated putting a notice out. You got to go find the notice. You got to go find the notice. So that is that. Now, what do we got here? Okay, let me, we've got a few minutes here, and our next presenter is going to be from New Hampshire Lakes, and I'll change this in a second, and Kat is from New Hampshire Lakes, and she's going to talk to us about, do you have a presentation?
Heck yeah, I do.
Okay, you got the, is it on
Is
your
it okay if I use
laptop?
my laptop or I can send it?
Yeah, right, thumb drive?
I don't.
Okay, you can hook up there.
Sorry.
Okay, over here is, I hope your machine, you'll take your machine, I hope.
So while we're setting up, if anybody wants to
Yeah,
help
now, if
themselves,
anybody has,
coffee,
yeah,
I also have a bunch of stuff if you're interested in educational material from Hampshire Lakes.
so while Kate Keller sets up, Just disconnect that PC there, and then you can go from there. We'll go. So are there any questions about the things that I talked about? The grant, milfoil mountain? Yes?
So this notification is just so at your own risk?
It's always at your own risk.
It's always at your own risk, so.
It's always been at your own
So
risk.
you're not mandated to do anything to, if you want to go swimming, if you want to do whatever, go ahead, do it, but you're wrong. The one you might get.
It's like anything. No,
You're less, the state.
Yeah, so there's no, the state has no liability if you get sick. That's the whole thing.
I think what the state is trying to do is not alarm people unnecessarily, because when the red signs went up, everybody thought the lake was, or the water body, not just, try just close it. And you can disconnect it wherever you want. I think they're just, plus they don't have money for the signs. Out of service. That's probably part of it. That's probably part of it.
Yes, that it is about affecting tourism.
Yeah, right. So Kat will talk.
Plus it's hard to enforce.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so rather than having something that you can't enforce, it's a matter of you.
Take responsibility for your own self, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
Actually, the warning signs last year that if they were issued, you know, the red sign saying there's a bloom here, the only place those signs could be placed officially are municipal property. It would be anything else is private property. Association is a private association. It's their responsibility. Like we have a beach, we have a beach in Hampshire Shores, Lakeland has their beach. It would be your responsibility, somebody in your organization to post those signs last year. Now it's going to be everybody's. You don't have a.
My computer got upset because I think I plugged it in too early.
No. Do you have for the?
A USB, yeah.
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 But do you have driver for the?
What?
That's right.
I don't know, I have to turn on my subscription. And I can email my presentation too.
Okay, you can also download it on here and then use that. I could look up either because it's right. So if you want to download it on that, then you can.
Yeah, my computer's just burnt, starting because it was like.
Okay.
Plug out the it's not like technology these days. It's a plug
Okay.
that goes in.
For those who want coffee and stuff, go right ahead, water. We got more food and we know what to do with it. So how's everybody dealing with the Saturday rain?
Did you guys have rain last week? That was the first week that I didn't.
No,
Yeah.
no, that was a beautiful day.
Such a beautiful, just one sweet, beautiful summer.
That was it.
It's like, oh, great.
Perfect.
A couple years ago, 2023 had the wettest summer on record.
This one.
In 2023, and we're in line to,
Yeah.
Hit it again.
So let me, while you're sitting here and we're on a break, let me throw out a request. If you would like to join our committee, please come and see us. We're the fourth Thursday of the month.
They rarely say, may I sign up, Steve?
Sign up to share. We have quite a team that's been working, and I have to say also, and I'll say again at the end of the meeting, that the town has been very, very supportive. Conservation Commission, we're under the Conservation Commission, and they have been very supportive. As the residents. I'm sure today being a rainy day, nobody's on the lake, is right started off sleeping in. And that's fine. Because it'll be recorded by our Board of Selectmen here, our chairman. We thank you, Tim. For those that didn't make it today, we'll go from there. How you doing, Kat?
What? I've got, this is your,
Yeah,
okay, great. I'll download it.
Pull it up. There's only a couple things on it, so it should be plenty.
So I downloaded this one.
Yes.
So through last summer,
Yep.
the summer before, there's a website, on the state website.
Yeah.
Go and look at all the lakes around the whole state, wherever there's a bloom. And last year, from what I recall, surprised me, that they were recorded, maybe I'm mistaken, but 23, yeah, like in August, it was like weeks.
The blooms are only there if they're reported. Some people won't report them for a variety of reasons. I mean, before the state really got involved in cyanobacteria, people who lived off water and bloom, my neighbor had the same thing. Get it and just stir it up. But you don't kind of get rid of it. Kind of messes around. So if there were no blooms that were reported. Now when you go into that map, you click on the there's a lot of data in there that they'll tell you about. If nobody physically reports a cyanobacteria, I can tell you this one, I had a slight bloom this year mixed with the pollen. A lot of people got confused with the pollen. There was some cyano, I was told by our lab coordinator from the state that there can be some cyano mixed in there. And the pollen was around a lot. It just seemed like it never stopped. So if, in my beach, I had a very sliver early on, and it was dissipated within an hour. Now, remember, cyanobacteria, without a wound in every body of water, when the conditions are temperature, all that kind of stuff,
For the Middleton County?
that's when the wound.
I don't, are you trying to let me go wild? No, this isn't
Concentrated
mine.
phosphorus to make the algae growth. That's what we're going to try to reduce nitrogen. Look at that!
Yeah, you have to sign in, I think. Sorry. If you sign in, it's like.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I've done.
That's not true, Kurt.
Pull that one.
Heck yeah.
And this thing works up here.
Rad.
All right, so you're right up there, Kat.
Just pulling it up.
Pull it up. Go, all right, I'll pull it up. Oh, there you go.
Come on. You can do it. It's thinking about it. PowerPoint can't read. Why? Why can't you read it?
All right.
Reverse. You want to water and out there? Oh, I'm good, yeah.
What is it, Adobe or is
It's just a PowerPoint. There was a PDF too of it, so I downloaded the PDF in case you wanted to see this. I'm here to talk to you today about lakes and the challenges that are facing them as far as cyanobacteria blooms, water quality concerns, and all those issues, and basically ways that we as individuals and communities can try to address those concerns as we move out into the world and live on our properties and homes, whether you're seasonal or year-round. And that's as far as I'm going to go about the slides. So I can go in a little further. So I'm here representing New Hampshire Lakes, and I'll show you a beautiful picture of a lake that says New Hampshire Lakes, voice for 1,000 lakes. And essentially what we do, if you haven't heard about us, is we're basically a resource to all of the lake associations, and our programs are supposed to be here for people who love lakes, who live near lakes, who've heard of the lake, or who are in our states, whether you're waterfront or not. We all rely on fresh water here in New Hampshire. And we're here to act as a resource and sort of serve the community around the water trends. We mainly do that through education, outreach, conservation, and advocacy. So as far as advocacy goes, check out all the cool stuff that I brought. We have a program that is lobbying on bills that can affect our lakes, our people living around lakes, and our freshwater resource in New Hampshire. My boss's boss, Andrea, if you've been around the lakes in time, you've probably heard of her, Andrea Longrow. She's our fearless president, and she sends out our advocacy alerts to let us know when we, as members of the New Hampshire population at large, can write in give our opinions on new bills that are submitted in the House and the Senate that can affect the water that we care about. We can go back. That's perfect. I'll find out the very like I mentioned, for our advocacy of conservation, I'm going to talk to you mainly about the Lake Smart program today. Our conservation program is the Lake Homes program. It is where volunteers and then these seasonal employees work at the local programs every year and teach voters about aquatic species, how to clean, drain, dry their equipment, their watercrafts, and look for invasive species and pull on those where they can get into our waters, and that's on a daily basis. And for outreach, we do programs at big market days, town meetings, the Lagoon Conservation Group does a cool weekday every year to go and do a teach that. And we come to awesome meetings like yours and get to speak about what it is we know and the differences that we bring you guys. So, there's that downward trend in water quality in a lot of our lakes. Quite often in the past few years. This is because of a lot of different factors. This could be because of polluted water, polluted runoff water. This is water where there's point source or non-point source pollution. Point source is cyanobacteria that was dumped inside in. Or I was driving my boat and I know I had an oil leak and I leaked oil into the lake. And non-point, which is a problem that we can all play a role in, and none of us are completely alone to blame for, but we're all responsible for. This could be things like fertilizers going off our lawn into the water because we went too close on the shoreline fertilizing our lawn, or we had too much salt on our roads and now it is to us, and that road goes right over the lake and the ramp, and we can see the salt they swept off by big speakers spraying when the snow finally clears out. These are different types of pollution that affect our lake and our water quality. Changing weather patterns have a big effect. As we see more extreme weather, hello, rainy summer, number 3 in the last few years. Water gets turned up at the bottom. You see them up at the bottom of the lake churning. That's nutrients that had settled and weren't available in the water, and now they're getting mixed up. They're available for fish and for plants and for also cyanobacteria that kind of eat and party. That's with our extreme storms, with the changing weather patterns, we also see as temperatures change, how hot and cold it is can affect the way that our lakes turn over. A lot of the lakes turn over on a schedule, whether it's once a year or whether it's twice a year. We don't have a lot to do cool random things in New Hampshire where it's like every over 3 weeks. But those changing temperatures can really affect what our lakes are doing too. It affects how the water stratifizes. So what layers are really cold or really warm up on top. I don't know about you guys, but when I go to the ocean, I like to swim kind of like I'm floating, because if I put my feet too far down, it gets freezing. The same thing happens in our lakes. And all of these changes can feed really scary things. A big thing that's been on the docket for a lot of people the last few years is cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria can be scary because blooms are threatening to our health. They're not safe for people. There's cyanobacteria that when it dies, when there's a bloom, so there's a lot of it, more than there normally is, when it dies off, it can release cyanotoxins. Some cyanotoxins are linked to different types of neurotoxins. Some of them are linked to Alzheimer's. Some of them are linked to the chemicals that we see in people's spinal fluid with ALS. We know that chronic exposure to cyanobacteria can be really dangerous. If you're collecting a sample, please come It gets in the way of our recreation. It's really dangerous for small children and pets and tiny wildlife. They aren't tall and big and strong like us. They don't have the same immune systems, and so it can be dangerous for them. This is not all cyanobacteria, but it's some cyanobacteria, and it's hard to identify just by sight which ones can be really detrimental to people and which ones can be stinky and in the way and yucky. Because it's so disgusting. It can, and I mean disgusting. It's okay. I don't like using negative language for a lot of things, but cyanobacteria deserves it. It discourages tourism. It gets in the way of our businesses. We live in a beautiful state people want to come to because of our lovely lakes and our bit of coastal and our beautiful mountains, and it all mixed together makes us a beautiful state that's based on a lot of ecotourism. So what's feeding this cyanobacteria? Cyanobacteria likes warm water where it can sit, it likes sunshine, and it likes increased nutrients. So when people talk about, oh, the rain is going to create a cyanobacteria bloom, you might notice those blooms happen after the rain has stopped. A big storm has taken up all of these nutrients. Phosphorus and nitrogen are the main nutrients that cyanobacteria and plants and bacteria tend to like to eat. As that phosphorus has settled at the bottom of the lake, it's not available to cyanobacteria. It can't go digging in the bottoms. But when it gets churned up and it's in the water again, the cyanobacteria that's there is like, this is great. It's a buffet. I'm going to call all of my friends. We're going to eat. We're going to have babies. It's totally fine. There's food for everybody. And it's warm enough because the rain's over. The sun's out. Yay! But it's a big problem. What can we do about it? We can try and limit the nutrients that we give that are extra nutrients in the water. So the cyanobacteria doesn't have much food to eat. Get out of here, cyanobacteria. This isn't a buffet. So, New Hampshire Lakes in 2019 launched the Lake Smart program to help teach people like you, like our neighbors, like our friends, like our mom. Shout out Andy. She's not dead. This is just a shout out to her in Concord. On how they can help save the lake from cyanobacteria. Because there are little things that we can do, and there are big things that we can do that might take longer to implement, that stop the rain from moving across our properties, picking up phosphorus and nitrogen from fertilizers, but also from sand and soil. A grain of sand, a grain of soil, those can carry pieces of phosphorus with them into the water. And so if we can stop that water on our property, we can try and collect it instead for our beautiful lawns, our gardens, our plants that we want to grow, and keep it out of the hungry mouths of cyanobacteria. So the goal is to educate and equip property owners with the knowledge to make these sort of informed choices. This is a property that I liked. They had a really large yard. They didn't like mowing the lawn. Me too. And so they did, I wish I should have picked a clearer or smaller photo, but you can kind of see here where they have lawn areas that they maintain for their recreation, and then they have wildlife gardens in between. This is a little bird bath. My husband was a birder. I like looking at birds and pretend I'm a birder. So what does the Lake Smart program look at? Where can we make these changes on our property? This is all sorts of places. We look at driveways and parking areas because that heat from sand in the sun, from pavement in the sun, can warm up rainwater when it falls down. That rainwater can get toasty. What does cyanobacteria like? Other than what it eats, it likes warm water. That's right. We look at yards, recreational areas, and footpaths. I don't know about you, but I had an aunt growing up, and the access we had to the stream in her backyard, the footpath got so worn down, and we wanted to get there as fast as possible, so it went straight into the water. And so when it would rain, we had a nice little funnel of dirt and foot dust heading right on into the lake. Well, stream, that's fed the lake. We look at the shoreline and water access. Our shoreline can be the last place where we stop the water, hold it back. It's the person in the front seat in the, what's the movie with the lady from Miss Congeniality? She like holds her son during the car ride. Never mind, I won't do pop culture references, because I don't know them. And we look at structures of wastewater and treatment systems. I'm talking septic. And we also talk about lake-friendly habits you can have inside your house. So like I mentioned, now's the part where I'm going to go over some of these things that we can address individually. I'm going to plant the seed. If you're like, oh, that's something I could do, like super easy. Awesome. You don't have to give me credit. Take it for yourself and tell your neighbors. Here I've got a great photo of a driveway that I love to show people because this is a great way to practice slowing down the rain, cooling off the water, and soaking it into the ground, soaking it up before it can get to the lake. So in this photo, the lake is back here, and you can't see. What is something that you see that could slow down the rain in this photo? Anyone want to guess? It's okay. If you don't want to interact, you don't have to. The crushed stone. Yes, the crushed stone is going to slow down the water. There is basically a matrix where this crushed stone has air gaps in between it. The water has to filter through those air gaps, kind of like that game you play where you like plink a coin in and it dings around on all the wooden pegs. That's what we're doing with our water, this crushed gravel. How are we cooling down the water before it gets anywhere near the lake? Trees, yes! Trees are a powerhouse of cooling down water because they create this shaded area. This gravel doesn't even get to be as hot as it is. I don't know about you guys, I always get really scared of pavement. I have a dog and she's very dramatic. I would say sensitive, but it's really dramatic. And so shade like these on pavements is such a godsend in the summertime because it truly cools down the area so much. There isn't the potential for that heat pollution, is what we call it, when water gets hot. There's not the chance for the heat pollution. And then finally, there's a chance to soak up the water. Can anyone point out some things that could be soaking up water in this photo? I'll give you a hint, it's green. The grass. We've got the bends, so there's lots of room in the lawn if the water's going to fall there. We've also got deep root systems underneath all these trees, all these bushes that we can't see. They're doing the work because roots create space in the soil for the water to soak up along. So instead of the soil being compacted and like clammed together, I don't know who here keeps houseplants. I do. I have to repot them every few years because they're small plants and I'm bad at watering them so they don't have a great root system. And the soil gets compacted. I'm losing soil space in there. There's no air in there. These roots are doing the work of creating that space. Woody plants are superheroes because what they do is they catch the rain falling from the sky, and it's kind of like in cartoons when you see someone who dramatically falls and they hit all the branches and they're like, ooh, ah, oh, oh, and they hit the ground and they're not dead because there's a tree in the way and they hit all the branches. The water's not dead either. It's hitting all of these branches, it's slowing down, it's losing its velocity because it's hitting our canopies, and then it's hitting the ground. That's cooler, it's missing out on the heat pollution because of all the shade that it provided, and it's following our roots slowly down into the ground. So, woody plants are superheroes on our property. We're slowing down, cooling off, and soaking up all of the water. It's, so you can see this, so I'm really excited. It's gonna be a lot of compliments. We also let people know a great way that you can make sure you are keeping salt out of your water is by considering ways to responsibly use it on your properties. I personally have a really icy, scary property. I rent a very small apartment. I'm in a building. I've got 2 other families. We each have a floor. In the middle floor, there's a lovely woman. She is in her 80s. She's not the most mobile. I take care of the driveway. The reality is, I am not only shoveling my driveway because I don't want her to slip. So what I do is I make a brine solution, and I have another neighbor who I know doesn't trust my brine solution, even though it works. And he puts down sand, sometimes he puts down salt, and after storms, when we get that respite in between, and there's that time where our shoveled driveway has sort of been able to melt off a little bit of snow remaining, we can sweep up that extra salt, that extra sand, and it's a-okay to reuse another time. So that's a great way. That salt is not going in my drain anymore. It's not going near Beaver Lake. I live in Derry. And so that's a great way that we're keeping it out, because salt is a forever pollutant and sand carries phosphorus. So salt is something that we can't take out of our waters. We can't treat for it. And sand is not something I want to add to I want to add to the cyanobacteria party. Another way we can make sure we're keeping nutrients out of our lake is maintaining our septic systems. Are you guys, who here is on public septic? Only me. That's totally fine. Again, I live in a town. Like, what?
We won't judge you.
Thank you. I'm saving. Our septic systems are expensive to replace, and so taking care of them in the long term is great for our wallets. It is also really great for our lakes. We don't want to see a septic system failure or a leach field failure, because there are a lot of nutrients in our personal waste that is hiding in these places, and if these systems aren't able to keep them there, they leak into the ground, and the ground is next to our lake, and so it slowly eats into our lake. So a great way to maintain your septic system, if you have a leach field, keep your leach field clear of woody vegetation. 10 feet, go, even not 10 feet. Take your arms, make a wingspan, 5, 6 feet, that's fine. Walk around the edge. If this is my leach field where it's raised, walk around the edge, and you just want to make sure you don't have, any of your woody vegetation. Because even though woody vegetation is rad and it has those awesome roots, we don't want those roots going into our leach field, getting into the effluent. That's the stuff that slowly allows your septic waste to be treated over time. We don't want it getting into the pipes. We don't want our roots getting into the holding tanks. Make sure you've got those roots out of your septic system. They can be somewhere else on your property. Get regular pump outs. That's every 3 to 5 years, depending on your use. And also make sure you're getting inspections. I believe it's every 5 to 6 years. It's recommended. If you have a leach field, get the leach field inspected. Make sure that everything looks right. It's all stratified correctly. What they're going to do is they'll go in. Some inspectors will take the core. Other inspectors have a camera and they look in. It depends on your system. It depends on the inspector. But they'll be able to say, hey, your septic system looks great. Actually, you have this little damage here. I found it on this one pipe. We're able to change it now because it's not a large rupture. It's not a big issue. Hey, your septic system is aging. I happened to notice that we need to do this so that we can maintain it. So you're not replacing an entire system in 6 years when it fails. Instead, you're treating it to maintain it over time. Has anyone had to replace the septic system recently? Yeah, it was expensive, right? Yeah. We had to replace my grandmother's septic system, and this was 10 years ago, so it was infinitely cheaper, and it was 20 grand. Super expensive. Good deal. Yeah, good deal. Right before the prices went up. Granite State On-Site Water Association is a group that certifies septic inspectors, and those are people who are going to be able to help you with preventing and detecting failure in your system ahead of time. Thank you. This is my cat meme. It says, me, sleeping this winter, knowing I planned my snow storage away from my leach field and shoreline. Why do you think it's not great to take a bunch of snow from your property and pile it up near your shoreline, near the water?
To get everything in the lake.
Exactly. Eventually it's going to melt. You're going to get everything in the lake. And why do you think that's a problem if I put it on top of my leach field? There's no trees in the way. It's a leach field. Exactly. Our leach field is only meant, depending on how many people it's graded for in your home, to take on so much liquid and so much water at once. So we're not going to try and stress it out by adding this water to it. We're also going to protect it by not putting any extra weight on top of where the septic system is. A pipe, even if it's very, very strong, eventually has a weight limit. There's no reason for us to test it with hundreds of pounds of snow. I don't know if hundreds is the right amount. I have no concept of if it is thousands or hundreds. Next, in our spring and summertime, we can think about lake-friendly lawn care. This doesn't have to mean not getting to have a lawn. I come from a football and softball family, so we want our lawn. We play a lot of field sports together. It's gotten somehow more contentious and competitive as we've gotten older, but there are things we can do to make our lawns more resilient. Some of these things are letting your grass grow longer. If you let it grow longer, especially in March, when it first starts growing, it's able to first establish those deeper roots into your lawn area, and roots help the water soak in. You can overseed with native lawn species. You can also test your soil. I get a lot of questions from people that are like, hey, our soils are acidic in New Hampshire, and for some reason, my non-native lawn species isn't taking. Can I just put a ton of lime down on my lawn? I wouldn't recommend it because it's a quick fix to a problem that you're still going to have because you're trying to put something that doesn't want to be here. If you're worried there's something wrong with your soil, even though we have slightly acidic soils in New Hampshire, they also have a lot of nutrients in them. So it could be more of a problem of planting what's right for your area rather than being worried that your home is a dust bowl. Some people have a dust bowl home. I understand that. That's my backyard right now. Testing your soil is a great way to find out what you are working with so you can find things that work for your home. Like that photo I showed before, you can create no-mow areas. I love a no-mow area. A few years ago, I didn't like mowing the side of my mother's lawn, and I was like, you love squash. I'm putting squash here because they like the sun here. And it definitely wasn't that it's a 45-degree angle, and I hated mowing it with her push mow. Plant a squash, it takes up so much space. You don't have to mow there until the fall. And break up your area with gardens. Here's that photo again of these lovely no-mow areas. Or we have this photo. This person wanted to maintain their lawn in the backyard. Where we're standing to take this photo is their driveway, and their road was graded to tilt water towards their property and the lake. Yikes. Talk to the people in your town that are in charge of regrading roads if this is a problem for you. See if you can't make a case for regrading it away from your lake. But so what they did was they planted out very heavily along their whole driveway to capture this water. So as the water came off of the road, it hit these plants. They have hostas here. These are very, very tolerant plants. I'm a little obsessed with hostas. Some people think that they're silly looking. I love them. I use them as a guard on my garden from the deer because the deer will eat them and they can survive it. And then they have one pathway, and their pathway is pointed towards this gravel pit that catches the water coming off of their roof that doesn't make it into the gutter. And so any extra water, if they're getting it by this point, is being directed into another place that can filter that water. And because of that, they felt like they were able to capture the main source of this polluted runoff water on their property, and they were able to maintain that lawn in the backyard. Because this was a family that had 2 young kids that had just moved to this area, and they wanted somewhere for their kids to play. It's all about finding what works for you. You can maintain lawns, like this big beautiful one. You can create privacy barriers with bushes. As you can see, there's a strong, healthy shoreline here. We've kept our trees, and we've created this space where the water is caught if the lawn can't do the trick, because the lawn doesn't normally have what it takes to slow down water enough. But we're maintaining this healthy lawn where people can play, and we've got all of these strong roots doing work to help capture the water that might come off of it. So other cool lake-friendly living practices. Define and stabilize your walkways. So, look at your property. If you have a walkway and people don't use it and you see a path of least resistance that somebody has walked on, they're called desire paths. They kind of look like deer trails. Think about changing where your pathway is. Put it where people want to walk. Or if you don't want people walking there, put a hard garden in and a gate so they can't get through it. I'm really fun. As you can see here, we've got infiltration steps. This is something that we have. We post it on our website. AWA has one. Soak Up the Rain from New Hampshire DES has a beautiful informational graphic about it. And these are different ways that you can create stabilized steps that can take on water and infiltrate it instead of directing it, and also create accessible pathways in your home. Here, similarly, this is a flatter path. They use the same design where you dig down, you put in landscaping mesh so that your rocks and your gravel don't sink into the earth. And then they put their pavers on so that it's a nice stable walkway. Come up with ways for drainage on hard surfaces. We already looked at this awesome photo earlier. We've got this gravel doing the infiltration work all along the driveway. Some people prefer a pervious paver. You have to maintain what grows inside of your pervious pavers. If you have one that looks more like the gravelly matrix, and you have to weed it, and you have to weed it. These ones, the honeycomb, are meant to have lawn and growth coming up in between them, and it's creating this solid surface for people to drive on, while trying to maintain an area for rain to be able to soak into the ground in those driving spots. And finally, one of the most lake-friendly things you can do is make sure that you are creating planted and stabilized shoreland areas. So our shoreland area is that last piece of our property that is going to catch up whatever remaining runoff we have before it gets into the lake. That's why it's important to have some sort of growth available. Oh no, I made a little target. Okay, well, everyone ignore that thing. Whether that means you're in a property, like on this photo here, on everyone's left, where they had shrubbery and bushes all the way up to the edge, and they just had the access for their dock because they knew all they wanted was that one area to get out. Or if you have something like this, where they have sweet fern, which is a native species of fern, through the front of their area, and they've taken their trees, and these large ones, they've made sure as they've grown, they've pruned them up so they can see through to their lake. A lot of people live on the lake to see and be around the lake. So, when I say the shoreland area, I am talking about within 250 feet of the water. Within the last 50 feet of that shoreland area, that's the protected area we know about where you can't add pesticides, herbicides, or fertilizers, even natural ones. There was a trend about using essential oils instead of spraying for mosquitoes a few years ago that is still treating the area near you. And that's because of the aerosolized things, especially things that are meant to poison unwanted plants, unwanted pests. Not everything settles down quickly. It could get washed off by rain, by dew, and go into the water, or it can be in the air, and then it settles over here in the lake podium. So, what can we do to maintain our viewshed thoughtfully? You can cut plants down like to your knee and they're gonna be fine. This is a speckled black adder here. That's a resilient plant that you can basically stump and it comes back every year. But also we see our trees are pruned up. We've got, I think this little one is an aspen. We've got some of our white birch. These are trees that you can trim up as long as you are not taking more than 1/3 of the green leaves on a plant in a year off of it. It can survive a pruning, so you can responsibly prune up your trees. You can see through it. Kat, that's so cool. I super duper want to plant things on my property. However, gee whiz, have you been to Home Depot these days? Check out those prices. I completely agree. I highly recommend checking out the New Hampshire State Forestry. They have a nursery, and you can place orders in the winter time that are ready in the spring. These are smaller, younger plants. They're bare root, so you get them and the roots are out, kind of like the mandrakes and like Harry Potter. Okay. Yeah, I said it, I'm cool. And they're cheaper. I think the most expensive thing on their site was $3, and those are for their trees. They have shrubs, they have berrying shrubs. They're all native species, so you don't have to be worried about an invasive seeping into your home. And it's a very low-cost way to plant out your area. Kat, I have really specific aesthetics, though. I really want it to look beautiful in a certain way. I just got into gardening. I totally agree. No, I totally agree. Maybe you should check out the Native Plant Trust. The Native Plant Trust has a plant finder on it, and you can sort the results that you want based on your grow zone. So we're over in here somewhere. I don't know what zone we're in right now, because I don't know what zone I'm in ever. And you can also filter by the spread that you want. If you want a shrub, if you want a tree, if you want a ground cover, what colors you want, when you want it to be blooming, if you want it to be pollinator friendly, if you're worried about it being pollinator friendly because you love your fiance and he's definitely allergic to bees. You can filter it by the needs of your home, aesthetically and otherwise. Good job. So Up the Rain, New Hampshire is also a group through DES, and they have information as well about these native plants they recommend, as well as some pictures that show you the color of the plant, the season of its pretty colors, what kind of soil requirements it has. So there's some pretty rad stuff out there to make a beautiful, beautiful choice. Oh no, how did this get you? I'm going the wrong way, that's how it happened. So, in the last 5 years of the Lake Smart program, we've seen neighbors come together and really successfully build cultures around community-based change, because it's easier to do stuff with a buddy. So, here, as a quick rundown of some cool community actions, I'm planting the seed. Who knows, maybe next year you're like, that sounds amazing, like, why don't we do it? It's February, I'm sad, I can't wait to plant all of this planting with my neighbors. There are cost-sharing projects that neighbors can do. This can be, we're all donated in, and we're going to reach out to a local nursery and bulk buy a ton of plants, because we all decided low bush blueberry is really cool and it loves living near the water and it's okay with sandy soils, and I love eating blueberries. We're going to get a huge bulk order, and it's going to be cheaper for us, and we're going to the local nursery because we don't want to wait for them to grow up from the state forestry, like Kat said. You can build relationships with local businesses who might help support these efforts you're making. Go in, say, hey, we live on the lake, we're going to protect the lake. We know you want the lake to be open and usable and safe and not covered in green, nasty cyanobacteria. Would you like to work with us? We're planning this educational event. Can we post it here? We're planning this cost share, this group buy-in. We want to reach more people in our community. And build relationships with your town. They're also here. People who live here also work here sometimes. You might have people that work at your municipality that are interested. You might have people at your municipality who have these projects that are a part of your town plan or are a part of goals they have, and they haven't known how to reach out to your neighborhood, your lake association, a road association, HOA that you know about. You can also celebrate achievements, celebrate your community coming together. People respond well to these positive affirmations. You can also apply for local, state, and federal funding. I just want to plant this here. It's a quick little thing. AWA and Province Lake have been running a septic replacement cost sharing program for the last few years. They use 319 grants with DES. You can also do this on your own if you have people who are willing to buy in and be like, we're establishing this fund. We want to start a trust. We want to manage a trust together. 319 grants is how AWA does it. So homeowners receive 60% of the cost of a project in reimbursement, They have to apply to AWA, get approval. They say, this is the licensed septic person that I'm doing my septic system replacement with. I am this close to the water. This is why it's very important to us. And AWA reimburses them some of the money. Obviously, it is capped around $5,000. That is not near the total cost of a septic system replacement. However, it is a starting point to try and help lessen that burden. And you don't have to do it through the state. But someone out there is. I'm just planting the seed if this is something that's interesting to you. Finally, you become a Lake Smart community. And then you get to hang out with me later in the summer. The Lake Smart community is, basically we realized that Lake Smart is a community-driven program. And so we have shifted it to recognizing communities of neighbors that have come together to make a difference on their individual properties for the good of their community. The community award starts when 15% of individual property owners earn the Lake Smart Award, but as a community you can set higher goals. Kamasaka is one of our Lake Smart communities, and I'm starting to get dry, sorry. They have a goal where every year, for at least the first 5 years, as they establish as a Lake Smart community, they have a group, they have a community-wide plant share day where their association fundraises and sets aside funds to buy plants to give homeowners to plant out their shorelines in the year. Good job. How this works is your community will have a Lake Smart ambassador. This is somebody who comes to the meetings and says, I know you're all ready, let's plan a day. New Hampshire Lakes is gonna drive out here, and they're gonna come and they're gonna visit each of our properties individually, and we're gonna get in-person, real-time feedback for your specific property from a trained professional, someone like me, one of my coworkers or myself, and they're gonna give us these hard action items that we can, but don't have to, but can do that fit for our home, for our mobility, for our cost availability. I've been on homes where these are millionaires and they were like, look at this cool $30,000 like water infiltration system I put underneath a lawn because I was really like invested in having a lawn. I can put thousands of gallons of water on it in a minute. And then I've also gone to homes where I've met people and they're in their 80s and their 90s and they're like, I can move this far every day between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. I have those railway tiebacks left over from when my dad left them here literally 60 years ago. What can I do? I've got water coming off the road. I know I need to make some sort of burn. Like, how am I going to fix this water event on my property? So the whole idea is working with you and what works for you and your family and your home and try and find some sort of solution. So the Lake Smart Ambassador is not somebody who gives you recommendations. They're somebody who gets you all together so I can come and give recommendations to you. They're rad people who are great at community engagement, program promotion, event planning. And in a few weeks, basically we are going to be launching the Lake Smart portal. Has anyone ever been involved in the Lake Smart program? Oh my gosh, it's happening. I don't even have to tell you about how it used to be, because it used to be very long. Now you sign in with an email, you answer questions. When it works for you, it can be on a computer, it can be on a phone, it doesn't matter. You can upload photos when you're like, no, I really don't think you understand what I'm working with here. You have access to the online resource library, but also I can see what you've answered in real time, and so when you submit your survey, I can write back to you and be like, that sounds terrible. Here's what I would do. Or, more likely, that's amazing. How did you even think to do this project? Can I use your picture for an example in a presentation? You've done an incredible job. And once you've filled out that survey, you're eligible for these property visit days. This is me. I was visiting a very nice woman. She was in her 90s and she had an invasive species, I think, burning bush. And it's in Apache poison ivy, and I don't have a reaction yet, but I will if I keep doing this. But I walked into the poison ivy and pulled it out. doesn't always happen. Normally it's recommendations. But if I see an invasive species, I tend to get a little bit feral about it. But so we plan these properties, we come out to your property. It's normally up to an hour. Sometimes we don't have any recommendations for you. You've already done everything that we can think of. And it's only like a half hour. But we make these recommendations that are tailored to you, to your life. We talk with you about them, and then we also put them on the portal so that you have that follow-up that you can look back at if you want. Don't forget, LakeSmart is free, voluntary, non-regulatory. That means if you're doing something that happens to be illegal, I am not going to report you. I will just say, hey, just so you know, you have to fill out a permit every 6 years per the law of the state to add new sand to your beach. And most of all, it's fun. Look at these two. They're in the rain and smiling. It's because I've got a lot of puns. Have me out to your home. And that is what I have for our information today. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if anyone wants to sign up for the mug raffle still, feel free to sign up, and we will do that after. Are people okay if I like took a picture of us all together? We were like, yeah. Can I see? Everyone close your eyes. It's okay if you vote no. Or don't close your eyes if you don't want to. But I'm going to do thumbs up if you're okay with the photo, thumbs down if you're not okay. Oh, no closed eyes. No one's worried. It's just me. Yeah! Woohoo! Awesome. So let's do some questions, and then we'll do the mug raffle and a picture. Any questions? Heck yeah! If you, oh yeah.
I do have, do you have any information on the native plants and where you can purchase things?
I will write it down, yes.
Because I didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. The State Forestry Nursery, and they are awesome. They're normally sold out by now. I highly recommend ordering from them in the winter. My mother really wanted a red chokeberry, and she kept forgetting until May every year, and she did not get one until she remembered before May. So, other questions? Yes.
So organic fertilizer beyond 50 feet of the shoreline is generally okay?
It's generally
Like
okay.
polytone or something
It's
like that?
not illegal because of the Shoreline Protective Act. I don't recommend it. Again, we have very fertile soils. I highly recommend getting your soil tested first. We don't normally need fertilizer. We normally need aeration. A big problem in New Hampshire that people have is they don't aerate their lawns, and we have snow in the wintertime, and it's heavy, and it can compact soils, especially where a lot of water bodies are on these slopes. We see a lot of hemlock, a lot of pine, given where you are in the succession, so like the age of the trees around you. Sometimes people's homes are in areas that don't necessarily want lawns, and it doesn't really have to do with the fertilizer, it has to do with the amount of shade or sun that they get. I highly recommend aeration and testing your soil. It's about $25 for the UNH extension, and you can send away your soil in the kit, and they let you know. They say in 2 to 3 weeks, but my mom's done it a lot, and she tends to hear back in like 3 to 5 days. So,
Did everybody get a chance to put in for the raffle that wanted to? Look at that mug.
look at that mug. Cool. Great question, though. But yes.
About shrub fertilizer
Oh
as opposed to lawn.
yeah. Yeah. I would get your soil tested, is what I recommend.
Yeah.
And sometimes also your soil consistency is a big it's a big thing that's dependent on the species of the shrub. So some things want very like fresh, airy clay. Some things like low bush blueberry are totally cool with being stuck in sand. You can test how much clay is in your soil if you take some of your soil, dig down a little bit under the leaf litter, and if you can push it between your fingers like this, and it holds together a bit, you might have more clay in your soil. So you might want to look for species of shrub that are okay with slightly clay soil, with more nutrient dense soil, and want to be in wetter environments. Those are like the things that they're looking for. And if it's more sandy and it falls apart really fast, we also have lots of species in New Hampshire that are happy in sandier soils. Forsythia, rhododendrons, and also hydrangeas, as long as they're getting the right amount of sun. They're like cool with different settings, but the sun and soil intersection has to be right for them. Other questions? Did that answer yours? Why the kitties? I think it's funny to make cat memes for my social media quotas because my name's Cat.
I always get the question, so why can't we add sand? Because we've got sand in the lake, so tell me.
Yeah.
What's your answer?
My answer is when we add sand where there isn't normally sand, we tend to lose that sand into the lake. When we lose that sand into the lake, sand carries phosphorus, and so it's feeding the cyanobacteria that goes into the lake. If it's like a lighter porosity, it also can get kicked back up into the column more. It's making murkier water. It's creating areas where plants can move in and grow in under the water. And so we see a move-in of these plants, whether they're native or invasive. They're like moving into areas people aren't expecting. I've had a lot of people who, there was this lovely woman I met one year, and she had sand in her whole backyard. It was highly illegal. It was not at all within the quotas. It filled in, and she'd been living at this spot for like 40 years. And it filled in. She said, I'm getting more lawn. I don't know what's happening. And she's like, and something's happening from the road because there's a peninsula now. And she showed us pictures, and there was like a full 50-foot peninsula that came out off of her area. And it was the sand that she'd been adding every year by the truckload. And she was upset. She was like, I have murky water. It's mucky. There are plants everywhere. And like, I'm not doing anything wrong. We had to say, hey, you're adding all of this sand, and it's building this peninsula. It's creating this area for the plants to grow. Like, unfortunately, like, these are really intrinsically tied. She did not have me back. She didn't like that answer. But it's something that carries more nutrients into the water. And if you don't plan for how to keep it on your shore, you're going to lose it. And you're going to keep paying money to lose your beach. A perch beach is a super cool way to help combat that. So a perch beach, you work with an engineer, and basically they make you like a sandbox beach that's up a little bit, and you have a step down into the water. And what this does is, if you have ever gone rolling down a hill, you stop when you reach the bottom of the hill, and you don't really get to keep rolling along into the flat area of the lawn. Same thing happens with the water. It loses its momentum because of the flat beach. You get less of that energy from the water pushing the sand into your lake. Your sand gets stuck where it is. There's like a little retaining wall that holds it in, and so you're not losing your sand, and also the water isn't stealing your sand and throwing a party for cyanobacteria. That's a great question. All right. Let's take a picture together. I'm gonna take one picture. Everyone like do like something happy with your hands. You wanna do like pieces or like hurrah? Oh no, not a selfie. All right. Oh. All right. On three. 1, 2, 3. Yay! And I am gonna do one selfie because I know it makes my boss smile. Oh no. No sand on 3. 1, 2, 3. No sand. Awesome. And I'm going to do the raffle. Did anyone sign up for the raffle?
I think they're in that.
Okay, sweet. I'm really afraid of not doing this fair, so I'm just gonna keep mixing up. Okay, try that one. Brad Poznanski. What's your last name? Thank you, Brad.
We don't know each other there.
Yay!
Here you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, do you want me to leave some stuff?
If you don't want to take it, we'll take it.
I'm gonna leave a bunch of stuff, including a lot of copies of my business card, because if you have questions, please feel free to ask them, because I love answering them. And yeah, cool. Thank you so much. You guys have been amazing.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, if we want to take a quick break while Marine Patrol sets up their electronic equipment.
We've got 30 people and we're like doing one community, that's fine. We also have like, because we have some people that are like, I have the HOA of Sami.
Right, yeah, that's the only way you can do it.
And then you just need someone who wants to be an ambassador. Picks a date on the calendar and then people who want to. Or is it
Introduce our final presenters here, and we have with us Officer William Hackman and Officer James Velato from New Hampshire Marine Patrol, and I asked them to come and talk about several subjects that are on your agenda. And I appreciate you guys coming in on a Saturday. I know it's rainy, you don't do anything, right? So, Officer Hackman, you've got the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming out this morning. It sounds like an interesting progression of presentations, which is awesome. And I think they collaborate well with talking about the laws of the water. So the presentation I have is a little bit about Marine Patrol and then also detail into some specifics that we've been asked to present about. It's a presentation that I have put together recently, and since I can't quite see my screen there, I will probably be looking fairly often at this screen, unfortunately, so I apologize for that. But I think it's worth knowing a little bit about ourselves. Both Officer Velato and I are part-time officers for Marine Patrol, and Marine Patrol relies on part-time a great deal. And that's an officer that has been through the academy, but doesn't work year-round for State Police Marine Patrol. We are a division of State Police, which means that we enforce all the same, we enforce the laws that are required, and we have the same training. So it's introduced, and we have a number of officers that are full-time, year-round, and when they're not in this area, or if you're not from here, they can be on the seacoast, they can be anywhere in the state, and that's important to understand as well, that we do work year-round, and we have a number of folks that are always there, ready to help us. Let's see if I can make this.
Page up, page down.
All right, let's do the page up. There you go, page down is it. But here's just what I said, it is who we are, and we are enforcing warning laws around the state. All bodies of water, except for smaller that are private and smaller than 10 acres. So that's where our jurisdiction works. And it means that we can be all the way on some of the small lakes in the very southern part of New Hampshire, or all the way up on Lake Onondaga, which is right on the border of New Hampshire and Maine. And it's a good ride up there. So if you enjoy some quiet places, we have some of the hidden secrets in New Hampshire of where to go to. So again, we're full-time and part-time officers. And we have a couple different classifications of those officers. And I'll come up with a second, I beat myself on the wrong side there. But, so we enforce the laws, we manage all the navigational aids, which is an interesting piece that we will go out on a work boat, and instead of enforcing the laws, we're moving navigational aids around and replacing them. I don't know how many you have out here, you may not have very many, but that falls on us to help take care of those. And then we have some other folks in our buoy division that also do it. But by and large, it's a shared project for us. Anything from mooring to education falls into a different division, but we're also happy as officers to come out and talk whenever we can, just like this morning. And we manage swim lines and permits for those special areas. So if you know somebody has a swim line, please ask them, has it been permitted, is it regulated? And we also talk space with a lot of people about swim floats. They are not regulated by us or the state or your town, but there are some regulations that are important to know about swim floats that need to be monitored because there's some important parts of that. What's that?
So who monitors them?
That's a great question. We will come out.
And you don't, so it's like.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are some RSAs that are applied to them specifically. And we will come out and remind folks, and we can enforce that law, but it's not regulated. We don't come out and check every swim float that goes in. But if we are working on a lake, we will make sure that it's not impeding proper navigation around the lake. Because quite often, folks, well, some individuals, I shouldn't say quite often, people will put out a swim float, not only for them to swim to, but also to help keep people away from their shore. And that's, we have to be mindful of that because if it's impeding normal traffic, it can't be that far out. So it has to be brought in. So that's a, whatever. Yeah.
So next question. So, because I have a piece of property on the lake, you know, I try to keep any float or water trampoline, you know, I try to keep it no more than like 40, 50 feet because I know normal boats are about 75 to 100 feet out, right? Okay. So as long as I stay within that,
you should be okay. You should be okay. Same thing about how we place moorings when they're regulated. on lakes that they can't impede, and then even if they're not being regulated, a mooring can't be put out so far that it impedes traffic.
Okay. So then well, I guess my other question is this, where it's a smaller lake, okay, that doesn't change how close the boats can come to shore?
No.
Okay.
And that's what's hard on small lakes, is that you end
That's
up
realistic.
quite a bit of a shrink
Yep.
once you say, well, you can't be 150 feet from shore without being down to headway speed. And that's an important topic.
I got a question.
Another question back there.
I got something.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So if I wanted to put I have 2 small kids and wanted to put a swim raft out in front of my house, I'm on the lake as well.
Yep.
Something they can swim to and go on, but I have moorings in front of my house. How does that work?
Well, you have to make sure that your moorings and your swim float are safe and navigable, and that individuals that are coming near them, you're not impeding normal traffic by having placed those there.
By my swim float or their moorings?
Well, oh, I thought you said they were your moorings.
No.
Okay, so when it's their moorings, now we have to talk about where in theory those property lines impede and how close to a property line the mooring can be placed.
Because I feel like in front of my house, I can't put a swim raft right now because the moorings are so close to my house.
Okay, and those are moorings that have been placed by other individuals, not necessarily there.
Yes.
And that's when we can talk
We'll get
about
that.
that. But yes, if we're talking about a regulated lake or an unregulated lake for
Sure.
moorings, the unregulated is very hard to determine where those moorings go. They just can't impede traffic. But we can't stop them from placing them in front of you. So that's why, as an association, we may eventually talk to the legislature about trying to make your lake a regulated mooring lake. And that would mean it would be an application process to be able to. Is this a topic that's come up before?
Moorings have come up.
Yes, I'm sure.
Does the 150-foot area involve moorings? For what Steve was saying, could he get closer to a mooring than 175 foot?
Well, yes, you can, because you have to be, when you come close to a mooring or a swim float, you have to be down to headway speed. So it just has to be navigable and proper, not impeding normal flow of the traffic of a lake or a body of water.
And just for everybody's, Sunrise Lake is a non-regulated.
There's only 3 in the state.
Well, there's more than that.
There is now?
There are 8.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. I know it says 7.
We'll get there.
So we're gonna come back to this.
Yeah, we can keep going on.
Yeah.
What's your next question?
Okay.
As long as everybody else is up here.
So my next question is this. So
I was safe until now.
you were. Yeah. So you have, you just said floats
Yeah, swim floats.
and moorings can't be 150 feet away from shore.
Well, so here's where that you can place them, they should be greater than that.
Because we have boats now that are mooring they're setting moorings that are over 200 feet away from shore.
They shouldn't be.
And the problem is it's starting to impede in the broads of the lake.
That's where the main crux of it is. See, I don't mean to point it.
Sure.
But that is big. Once somebody places a mooring that is impacting normal travel
Yep.
upon others, then that mooring it falls into an area that really needs to be moved, regulated, and impacted by an officer who needs to come out and speak to that individual.
Even though it's not a lake that is.
Yeah, but now it's impeding traffic, and it's a navigational hazard.
Yes, because like, I live at the end of the Lakeshore Cove.
And I apologize.
You can point to me all you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want you to know.
You can point to me if you want.
So my question is this, like if I come in front of my house, I can't make a turn now if I'm towing a tuber
Yep.
because, for fear that the tuber could swing
Yep, thank
and
you.
hit that boat or that mooring.
So so that if it is impeding,
Yep.
then that is a conversation should be taking place with an officer and the owner. Sometimes the challenge is finding the owner, because they may not live on the lake. I don't know if you know who they are exactly, so that's a big challenge. Yes, sir.
So I just mentioned I had kids and now I'm towing tubes quite a bit now.
Okay.
And I cannot get to open water from my house because of the moorings in front of my house.
Right.
So I need to cross over into the association where they swim. Constantly I have swimmers on the left of me and the right of me to get to open water. And I have to go around the boats to come into my house, and I can't get to open water from my house straight.
Right.
And I honestly,
And now you're driving through a swim area.
And now I'm driving through a swim area, which, don't get me wrong, I'm cautious, I'm not.
Oh, I'm sure, but that's,
I'm not flying through, I'm just worried about the safety aspect of that.
well, based on what you're telling me, there should be an avenue in which we should be able to speak to those individuals that place the moorings there, because it impacted normal travel of a lake, and they can't impede that. And if you end up with such a congregate space, I have to see it, so you have to understand it.
Oh,
I'm not seeing it.
you can follow me in the house after.
I'm not saying I won't, but I am just saying that there are pieces, so you're right, this is very complicated.
It sure is.
And it's hard, and it's
Yeah.
a scenario of, yep, people get pretty protective of both things. Their property
Those
and-
moorings, correct me if I'm wrong, those moorings have been there since Christ wore knickers.
100%.
Which is fine, but at the point, at what point do you put a cap on how many moorings? If you have all those houses up behind there, so if everybody decides, hey.
It's definitely a touchy subject.
So what would be your recommendation to try to mitigate that density?
Well, so if you, most of the time we suggest going to a mooring regulated lake.
Yes.
But what happens is, when you do that, is you potentially lose the ability and the right, even for you, to decide where your mooring goes and how it can be. So if you have moorings in front of your houses, it's potential that you could lose that.
Yeah, I know,
Because all the moorings that are currently in place would have to essentially be removed, for lack of better words, not truly removed.
Which I'm fine
But
with
they would
that.
have to be permanent then around the lake if you go through that process. And it's a process in which an individual could come out and speak to about how to do that. And you've talked about the individual. He's one strong advocate for it and making it happen. But it's not easy to do. It takes a couple of years.
What do you mean he's a strong advocate for?
So let me be more specific. Sorry, I didn't mean to be up too. So
Okay.
I apologize. We have a former captain of our department who now works on the civilian side. And he helps with the legislation in some of the towns that have gone through having their lake become mooring restricted and have a process in which you have to. He has helped them do that because he's done it so many times that he can come out. But he also is very much, as long as the individual says, be careful, you might lose the regulation of the non-regulatory scenario that you place 3 moorings in front of the point.
You could.
That you place 3 moorings, you're like, well, by law, you really can't have that many. And the towns only give you, or the states only give you 1 based upon how much property you have.
Yeah, and I wouldn't care about that, I wouldn't care if I had to pay $1,000 a year for my lot. You know, it should be a permanent.
But it
because
does,
it's
you're
getting
talking
dangerous.
about, you also mentioned there were some that have been there since the beginning of X.
Yep.
They may lose them, and that will cause some angst as well. So, it's a challenge, but it's a definite, it helps make it so you can't continue to have an implode of moorings.
Should the moorings be buried during the winter? Because as of right now, they stick above the ice.
Because we had
Oh, I
a snowmobile accident last year,
So the mooring and the mooring ball.
the ball,
They should be sunk, they should be below.
because nobody's sinking their moorings, and we had a snowmobile this past year, flip, and the kid ended up having to go to the hospital.
So they should be lowered. But there's again, if it's not managed and regulated, there's not much that happens.
I'm a little bit more passionate about this because it's directly in front of
Sure,
me.
no, I understand that. And we'll keep going, and we'll keep asking, oh, good. I don't mean to say somebody else would ask a question. I hope you're fine, this is okay, I'm not trying to, okay.
Is there, you mentioned regulated and unregulated lakes.
Yes.
And then you mentioned mooring regulated. Are they 2 different things?
No, I apologize, I intermixed those, so I'm talking about mooring regulated.
It's the same regulation.
That there is a governing body, the state, through marine control, that will determine how many moorings are on a lake, the spaces. Everybody would have to apply for one. If you have property, they end up asking first. If you don't have property on a lake, you aren't necessarily getting one mooring. Because right now, anybody can pop in. They can live in Texas, drive up and say, I'm going to put my mooring right there. As long as they have access to get in and out of it, they can get there. So, and it makes it very difficult.
Question.
Yes.
By saying that, does he have a right to say, I'm not pointing you?
Yeah, I know, I really should never point at anybody.
Does he have the right to take it out?
To remove
Yes.
somebody else's mooring?
Yes.
No, it's their problem.
So once when it comes into the lake,
Yes, it can be removed. And now if we come out and determine that a mooring can't be removed, and now if we come out and determine that a mooring is improperly placed, it's impeding traffic, it's making something unsafe, our first step find that individual, takes a bit, it's not easy to do, and then have them remove it. If they don't, then there's other steps in place. But for years, we would do some other steps, and we've stopped doing that, I'll be honest. On some big lakes that are regulated, it used to be the process was to remove a mooring, was to cut it. And that's, but I think we can all see there's a whole bunch of not so good things about that.
Yeah, I'm not.
You lose the ground tackle, you're saying it's pretty shallow out here, but that's a big expense on some lakes. Sometimes 40 or 50 feet, chain, you can no longer 4 foot or 6 foot diameter cement block, and that's costly to put there. And by us doing that, they either gotta hire a diver or something else to replace it. And then the ball disappears, that's also very expensive, because if you don't come to Reef Patrol and pick up your ball, then it just sits there and eventually gets destroyed. So, it's not a great, so we have stopped doing that, which I think is better for us and better public to interactions, like not to just cut, we do every effort we can. Now, if it is a true navigational hazard and a concern and it is unsafe, then yes, we might think about doing something else. But we do not currently have a system in place to lift a whole mooring, the ground tackle, the cement block, whatever it is, and then remove it from the lake. We just don't, that's not part of what we do. So, this is great.
Not getting to where you want to, but.
No, it's okay. It's in here, so it's.
So correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
On a non-regulated lake, if someone comes in and puts a mooring in front of your property, then you have no rights.
You are correct. It is on that, in a body of water, and it being unregulated, you don't. You could come to us and say, it now is in a navigational hazard, I no longer can get safely and easily into my dock.
Right.
That is a concern, and I've had to have those conversations on 2 or 3 lakes, saying, sir, I understand that you can place it there, but you have caused a navigational hazard. You are not able to leave that mooring there. That is improper. Even though you can just come in and place it, it still has to be placed correctly.
I personally feel like I have a navigational hazard in front of my house.
And we should talk about which officers should come out and try to
Okay.
amend that, and we'll talk further. Yes, sir.
Next question. So,
Sorry.
It's okay. Is everybody else educated by this? I hope. There we go. As long as we're okay. Do we have a time limit? No, I don't think so. So
I guess my question is this: who determines which lakes should be permitted and which aren't? Only because the fact is, you would think the smaller lakes would be the ones that need to be permitted. There's less real estate, therefore you're putting air warnings out there. You have less real estate to use.
So it's not, the determination is by the towns that surround that lake.
Okay.
So it is it's through an RSA. You have to go to the legislature to present that you feel that your body of water, and you must have enough support. How many towns surround your lakes, sir?
One.
That makes life easier. You have to understand the towns, the lakes that have multiples, it's hard to get everybody on board. If you can get them, again, through, I don't know all the numbers, that's why I'm saying utilize this individual, retired Captain Dunleavy, or somebody else from our office to help you navigate this. I apologize. That's the best way to do it, because they can have, then you're not recreating the wheel. He and some other individuals in Marine Patrol kind of have the checklist ready to do it. Here's all the steps you need to take. And how to make that work. So it is possible. What town was the most recent Highland Lake in?
Oh, you're talking about
The most recent mooring regular lake.
Oh, Pleasant Lake to your
Pleasant Lake, right? Pleasant Lake and Highland Lake. And it's still been at least 4 years since they did there. And then I hear of other lakes that are trying to do it, but it's hard. It's not super easy to do. Getting anything through our legislatures, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it's a process.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
On your slide, you mentioned navigational aids.
Yes.
Those are the buoys?
Yes, buoys. We call it ATONs or navigational aids, yes, but buoys.
Can you describe the ones that are, or can we get some that say slow, no wait, or versus just a buoy, or
Sure. So
can you describe them a little bit more?
So a buoy or an ATON, aid to navigation, come in different classifications. Some are for channels, and they're red and black and decide and determine what side of a channel you go to. Do you have a channel on your lake?
Not yet.
Okay, hope you don't need one. And then red and black determine a concern or a navigational hazard, and they help mark that. It sounds like you might have 1 or 2 red or blacks. So, but then also to put out a no wake is regulated through us, but if there isn't one on your lake currently, it meant that it went through the regulatory system, that it wasn't indicated at that time. So now you have an option as an association to say, we would like to place one here and make sure it's where it should be, but it then is regulated and managed by your association, not by us. Is that clear? So that you can place them, but it needs to be, the boxes need to be checked from us, but also we know that you are going to support it. We are not, if that makes sense. Because currently your lake has.
If we get a channel,
Okay,
certain area
okay.
of a channel, you would suggest, okay, it goes here, or I suppose. But we, as a community, would then manage that channel.
Yeah, let's back up on the channel. So I apologize, I threw out the channel. It's like,
There's two different things, there's a
Yes.
no wake and then there's a.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like your lake has a need for a channel. So it would be from an area, a portion of the body of water that gets so rocky on the sides that the only way you can travel is through that one spot.
Okay.
So if you don't currently have that, because it's usually something that's happened geologically, that would have determined a channel.
Okay.
Not because there's faults on either side. So I was just asking about what batons you had out there. So my apologies for
No, it's
confusing those things. So we'll go back to the no wake desire to have one of those type of buoys placed. They go through having been determined which lakes needed them years ago, and then those are then by statutory RSAs determines where those are placed, and that we then support that by law, that that's where they go, by and large. I'm simplifying my verbiage. But if you determine that there's an area of high concentration, an area that you feel it needs to be placed, you can ask that you could put one somewhere. We can say yes or no, here's why or why not. Because you can't place a no wake marker where there isn't an indication for no wake. So quite often, we have to talk about we might talk later on about where you're talking about. And I wish I just had a chart of your lake we could talk about it a little easier. But usually it requires that it is an area that is narrower, that there truly is an indication of no wake being proper and indicated. So if it's an area like, well, we're worried about safety, how people are moving too quickly through an area, and we'd like that to be a no wake. To get an area to be no wake, it also takes legislature to make that happen. I think I've also muddied the waters in your question, so let's go back to your question.
And again, where you're saying these determinations were made way back when?
Yes, exactly.
Well, since way back when, there's now every waterfront property practically has a dock and has a vehicle of some sort, a water
Yes.
craft of some sort.
Right.
So there's much more traffic on our lake than when that survey was done.
You're right.
When.
You're
So
right.
is there a chance of getting it reevaluated?
Probably, I don't mean to be disrespectful, probably not, because those are also set up by geographical areas that determine if that's a no-wake area. But it can be changed based upon an influx of activity to an area. Usually it kind of was known then, but it's still worth a discussion of is it possible? And again, you could choose to place one that we would have to support that would now be an area there's no way, but you would have to be managing that. Again, I hate to put it back to you, but because it's not by RSA, but it was determined it could go there, that is managed by your association. I see that on some lakes. I think I've answered the question, but not spectacularly. Yes.
This whole discussion is based upon the increase in wake boats.
Yes.
And it's washing the beaches.
Yes, it's eroding. And we're seeing this on, I think you imagine, almost every lake. The smaller lakes seem, not just seem, they are in fact more because, of course, there's less diffusion of the lakes.
I mean,
And
the lake we're talking about is so small
yeah.
that I don't know why anybody would have anything like that, because they go from one end to the other end and they're done.
I know.
You know,
And it's a gray area as well, because you're talking wake boat versus ski boat. Like,
correct.
there's a real fine area where how do you classify one versus the other? Because like mine, I have an 89 Mastercraft, okay? I can put ballast in that boat and create a wakeboard behind it.
Oh,
I never have because I try to, one, I like my shoreline,
The
but
pontoons can also make
Exactly.
But the weight from these wake boats is extreme.
It is.
That's, and if you're on a kayak and they're full of water, good luck. That's what's happening, that's what people's concern is.
Sure. And I think you know in last year's legislation, they tried to pass some limitations, and it didn't pass last year. So I would continue to encourage you to talk to your representatives about your concerns, that then also would go into the larger grouping of how do we manage this better in our state to protect our waters, or the body of water. It is a challenge, because I don't think they're going to go away anytime soon. It may end up being similar to certain types of vessels, that they're limited how close to shore they can be. And that was one of the caveats they started to work on with wake boats, is that you had to be 300 feet offshore to be able to run it. But that would, and if you have a small lake, that then definitely decreases what you had with one size to operate down to almost nothing. And then sometimes that might squeeze them out for good, bad, or indifferent. I can't tell you if that's right or wrong, but that is something that could happen because of the
Depth, also, the depth of the lake is.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, you mentioned it's pretty shallow, so. All right, we'll keep moving along. And if we don't get all the way through this, that's okay. It's really, there are some very specifics about some questions that we were asked to talk about. And I think we've hit some of them, which is great, so, yes. Good.
Next question.
Yeah, I just want to move along. We already talked about that one.
The boats that are moored.
Yeah, the boats that are moored.
That are moored.
Yep.
Is there any recourse as far as, like, some of them are older boats and leaking fuel into the lake? And we're worried about water quality. Does anybody monitor that as far as keeping?
That is something that should be, you should bring it up to an officer. You should call and say, this boat is leaking fuel. Please have an officer come check it. Okay. And that would produce somebody to come out and look. And if it is found,
I've been over by the town beach before, and there's a pretty good rainfall in the water because of boats.
right. And in your lake and others, there's also a challenge that people are hauling in gas, and they're filling up on, and they spill. So you end up with sticks from that as well, which isn't great. All right. It's super, that's about us, who we are. But it's worth knowing there are different classifications of officers. I'm what's called a field officer, and then we have officers that are stationary. So Officer Law, when he's done hanging out with me a lot, he's going to be a stationary officer. He's going to work on one lake and one lake only. Where a good number of us, actually we're small numbers, we're field officers. And we're issued a boat and we drive on Concord North, is my region. I can go anywhere, I can go south of that too if I need to, but we have more officers in the southern part of the state. So it could be that I'm responding to or patrolling any of those areas. We are short-handed, so if you know people, I have some nice little here, that's what reminds us about. We have some job opportunities if anybody thinks they want to get involved or they have kids, or that they're heading towards the retirement age, that would like to be operating a boat all summer long. And it's a pretty kind method of law enforcement, to be honest. It's a little different. It's a little, I think it was kind of gentler kind of enforcement of laws. Just my opinion. Happy to talk about that too. And we'll keep going in mornings and such. Well, I think these are things you guys know about us, that we regulate laws. We also get involved in not just all of them, but also about environmental stuff, just like you said. But criminal laws, if there's some sort of domestic abuse or scenario going on that you would think about your town officers are involved in. If it's anywhere near the water, we're in there to support them. If it's on an island, we're out there to support them. So we think about most of the Winnipesaukee Islands, but others. Or just the house is easiest access by water, or that we need to help protect that scenario. We do anything from investigations for accidents and drownings, and then they get prosecuted for this as well, if it's a bad enough scenario. Back to that navigational aids. There are over 3,000 of those buoys around the state that fall on us to maintain. So but please, if you ever have one that doesn't look right, it's falling to the side, it's lower than it should be, please report it. We'll come out and look at it and see if we can fix it or replace it. It's what we need to do. It also keeps you safer than anybody else on your lakes. Nobody can tell that was supposed to be there, and they hit that rock that's behind it. We are very heavily involved in the commercial aspect of what happens. Anybody that's making money on the water, that's really the broadest, simpler term, has to be commercially inspected, and commercially registered. So that vessel that's moving, that's making money, and some of them in very odd ways. You think about, let's go to Dartmouth or UNH, they have vessels that are involved with research, where there was monies that was given to them to do that research. That research vessel has to be commercially inspected. Then of course you go to the Mount Washington, of course, that one's making money. A camp that has been paid to use, to help enjoy the kids during summer. They made money off that. All of their vessels have to be commercially inspected. And their operators have to be commercial operators. So they're held to another standard.
What about DES?
DES as well, but we interact with them. Yeah, they are definitely a different division than we are.
Yeah.
And then on the seacoast, so we run a seacoast division. We have an office in Guilford, and we have another office down on the seacoast. And they will coordinate with the Coast Guard to run the shoreline on a daily basis for security reasons, and to work with them.
So you must have a full-time boat on the Sauk.
Oh, we do. Yeah, we have multiple full-times on the seacoast, and then we have multiples that stay on the water until full ice in on Winnipesaukee. Some years we didn't really ever have ice out. Last year was like super warm year for the most part. I was out in January patrolling, and then of course we were all back on the water really early in March. Like we had the earliest spring last year, and then this year we had like the longest spring.
Yeah.
And we finally saw that we were getting on the water when it stopped raining. So I think the question was in your projection of things like what is safety equipment that's required to be on every boat. So remind, when we stop somebody, we do a safety check and we look for 4 things. Make sure that there's a PFD that's appropriate for everybody on board. There's a sound producing device. I'd like to see more than one. Most boats have a horn. I'd love to see an air horn or a whistle as a backup, especially the whistle, because it means if everything fails, you can still whistle. It's hard always to hear somebody's voice calling for help when you get tired. And if you can blow a whistle, it's really simple. And it attaches to a PFD, especially if you're kayaking. You need to have what we call a type 4 or a throwable. So that's either the ring or the seat cushion type. It needs to be on every boat. And then a fire extinguisher that is in date and proper. Of course, we always check and say, hey, yours isn't going to work. It says right there, it's in the red. So make sure it's still green and okay. There's other additionals. I did this in the early hour. I feel like I forgot something. But make sure you have a paddle. Maybe a bailer if your boat could possibly take on water. Think about that, because what if the build stops working? An anchor or anchors. Sometimes people hang out on a sandbar. Do you have a shallow area that people hang out? Yeah, so
They raft.
Yeah, they raft, okay. And you probably have no restrictions on rafting on your lake. So they can raft wherever they want.
Does anyone?
Are there areas that have restricted?
Yeah.
Yes, there are.
Oh.
There are certain areas of certain lakes that are rafting restricted. And that we have to come in and enforce. But again, that is through, not just through us, that's through legislation.
Thank you.
Yep. But it can be done, absolutely.
Questions already on personal devices and so forth. Your life jackets. Life jackets.
Oh, certainly.
If you read the manual, it says those should be on a pontoon boat or any boat.
Yes.
They should be readily available, not under the seats.
We set them under the seats,
Okay.
but you know where they are, and you can easily get to them. We love to see that a throwable is truly within quick reach of the primary operator of the boat, so they really know where it is.
Okay.
And it can be a throw device, it can be a ring, that counts as well, but not just the throw bags. I'll be right there. But please, yes, if your PFDs are still in the plastic, unless it's the case that holds them, but they're still in case, they're not really ready for use. Shouldn't get tied up in that and still have tags on them. Please make sure they're completely ready to go. Yes, answer that question.
Yeah.
Same thing with extinguishers, make sure they're, okay, I'm ready for it.
Do all boats in the lake need to have a throwable?
Yes.
Oh.
Hold on, let me think about the size.
Greater than 16 feet.
Thank you. And
Oh,
less than 16 feet do not need that. Less than 16 feet don't need a throwable.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still nice to have one, like those little ones, the little metal boats are small, and you're sitting on a metal.
Yeah.
You might want a seat cushion, just throw it, because it's more comfortable. When do we operate? All the time, we don't stop. We've got officers on Winnipesaukee out. Some of my coworkers, were texting me at 2 in the morning yesterday, because they were still out putting around because there was activity last night on the lake. So, the bigger the lake, the more activity, the more high prevalence of a trawler being out. I'm hardly out on a little lake, much past dusk. But I will be out there. It's not the hardest thing to do. We're trying to be out more and be more present. Yeah.
How late can you tube in the evening?
What do you think?
Well, I would say.
Sorry, that was very cool.
No. I mean, I just don't want to, sometimes, it's calm out there and it's.
Dusk. You cannot be tubing, water skiing, operating PWC.
So midnight the other night was illegal? No,
That is correct. That wasn't legal. I didn't catch you doing it. Thanks for telling me. Please.
The list of white blacks.
I pass a lake on my way in to work all the time, and I can tell that those guys have been out. They've been out water skiing for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I didn't see them. I can't
Right.
do anything about it.
No.
And it's nice because usually have anybody out there.
The PWC, that's because they don't have
They don't have
navigational lights.
That's
Is that
correct. They don't have lights.
Oh, so once we don't have lights, you can't ski.
No, you can't. Well, if you can't utilize the PWC, yeah.
Next question. Other than navigation lights, the red, the green, and then your pole light,
Yes.
are you allowed other lights?
Oh, so they're.
I mean, what if I fish one boat?
Pardon me?
What if I'm a one boat fisher?
One
One boat, you use a light on the water.
The way I interpret the rules is if there are any other lights that could be indicated, that could impede, or also lead me to think that a navigational light, or another light is part of navigation, that would lead me to think your boat was not doing what it should be doing, then that would be improper. So like that one white light, about 360 to 30 inches above everything else on the deck, if you're choosing to aim at the ground in the water to be gaining access, it's a challenge. It would draw me to think that your boat's doing something odd, and I wouldn't be able to tell what it was doing at night, because it wouldn't align with your other lights. So that's a challenge. I don't think you're seeing it always enforced. We also see people that add these fun colors around the boat.
Designer lights.
What's that?
Designer lights.
Designer, thank you, yes. And
We got a lot of them.
yes, and if they are similar colors to a navigational light, that would make me think that your boat's going to be different, it's not, and that would be a problem. The other things that you doing a lot of pontoon boats on your
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So operating with the docking lights on is illegal. Yes, they are not. They are only meant for docking and docking only. They cannot be used as headlights. They blind other operators temporarily, and you cannot see where you're going, and you can't see them correctly, because the only light that you can run while you're in operation, while you're moving, are the two colored and the white. When you throw those other lights in there, you can't tell what the boat's doing. So they are illegal, and they're so bright that, again, they impact your night vision.
You can see them from way up on the hill.
Yep.
They're blinding
Everybody.
people, they're not even on the lake,
Yep, and they're super bright, so they are illegal to run. They have to only be on as you approach your dock. Yep.
So 4th of July coming up,
Uh-huh.
we have big 4th of July parade, and everybody puts their red, white, and blue stringer lights.
Come on.
For the one night.
Let's do it.
I don't think a special event is, and also, so those events should be sanctioned. You should be registering those with Marine Patrol. And most of them are listed. We have this long list of all lakes that are doing parades and such. So if you're not doing that, please do. But because it would then fall into a special category that abnormal things are being done. So in that case, as long as it's registered, it shouldn't be a problem. But no, I hear what you're saying. Come on, let us have a little fun. Right. There was another light-related thing I was going to throw out. Oh, no, it's actually pontoon related. So I'm going to go off on a tangent on pontoon. You said there's lots of pontoons.
Yep.
All right. Please help remind everybody on the lake that's running a pontoon that they may not be outside of that cowling while the vessel is underway. So many people step out there to fish. So many people step out there to think about helping grab a dock, or just to talk to their child that's over here. The prevalence of accidents related to pontoon boats is the individual that falls forward, the operator doesn't see it in time, and it's a perfect suck right in the park. Okay, that accident happens numerous times all across the states, and not only does it cause injury, but we see more than serious death. I mean, serious death is death. We see deaths from it. So there was another question, but I'll pause on that. Please, if you know people doing that, please help them to make a better decision. It's very difficult for folks to get used to the idea of coming to a dock and stay inside that region. Encourage them to use a bullpup to reach for them from inside. That there are aids out there that they should be able to use. They shouldn't have to step out while they're underway. Yeah.
We're part of VLAP. We're on the boat and we're doing water samples.
Okay.
Boat is, I mean,
If the boat is underway and if it is moving and is in gear, you cannot be outside of that. So if you're doing samples, boat's in neutral, you should be trying not to move at all. So there's no chance of that force of touching the water, so you should be stationary and then get doing your water samples. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. No bet.
What lights should a kayak have at night?
Truly, the kayak only needs one white light that needs to be seen at 360 degrees and needs to be at least 30 inches off deck. Okay? We prefer to not see kayaks out at night. But, yeah.
Or
Yes.
close to shore.
What's that?
Or close to shore.
Yeah. Yes, trees. Yeah.
The fire extinguisher, does that have to be have a date on it, or
It just needs to be green. It needs to be
So
on
if
the
it's-
green. There's no true.
at some point you ought to replace one of
It's
that?
good practice. Maybe 5 to 7 years is not a
Yeah.
bad idea. Just
Okay.
think about your smoke and CO detector in your house. There was a question in the back, and I hit it. I don't remember what it was. Okay, great. I should get to know you, Nick. Must be nice to know you well. All right. Helpful information. Hey, water. If you own a house on the water, please think about placing your number of your residence somewhere near the water side of your residence, so that if an emergency occurs, it's really easy to say, I'm at 124, even though they don't know the road, but that helps. If you do have a swim float, please remember, and this is actually a law, but we don't do enough with it. It needs to have a reflective piece on every side of it that is at least 12 inches square, so 2 by 6, 3 by 4 on each side, and it should have a placard with your identification so we can reach out to you. And
Like a vessel.
What's that?
It's like a vessel.
Yeah, it is, but yes, but it doesn't have to have New Hampshire numbers, but it should have a phone number, your address, and your name, so we can find you when it runs away from home. Because they tend to do that when they're not being watched. How many calls have we gotten this season? Too many. Yes, exactly. Like, we don't know who it is. It's fine. So please help your neighbors. Say, hey, did you know you need to have reflective on everything? Now here's a question that comes up. Hey, what if I want to put white lights on my swim float?
Yeah, there you go.
You can't. It's your impeding navigation by placing some other navigation aid that shouldn't be out there. So as decorative it is, in fact, there's also an RSA that says you cannot place lights that are brighter than X on your docks. They need to be very low light if you choose to put
So
lights.
you can't put them in docks without snow floats.
What's that? You can't put, yes, you can. You're right. So they actually, you can put, but it needs to be low light. It can't be something that could be,
But nothing on the
it
swing.
can be nothing else. Absolutely. I have it, but
Just reflective. No.
just reflective. Yes, please.
And don't put a red and a blue because that.
No, exactly, it's right, I can just, make it look like a boat. Yeah, no red and blue, please. All right. Helpful information. So please, we always want you to call and say, this is going on my lake. I have a concern for somebody's safety. A boat's coming too close. A boat's swimming too fast. I think they're drinking. We're really worried. If you can get this information, it helps. You don't have to, but it really does help. A good description of the boat, so color, an estimate of the length, the make, if you happen to know that. It's really tough for so many makes of boats out there. The bow number is helpful. All the descriptions, if you can take a picture, it's even better. If you have cameras from your residence that aim out towards the water, that'd be great, so that we can say, hey, can we get the video from that? We cannot go I can't go ticket Officer Villado on that, but I could have a really good conversation with him. And if you observe something that was so egregious, and you have some documentation to follow it up, and we all feel it's worthwhile, you could go in front of a court and make an official statement, and that could lead to that individual being ticketed. For lack of a better, we call them summons, but tickets is the common word.
We have a lot of towing of tubers. And we also have some that don't use spotters. And that includes PWCs, pontoons, etc. How prevalent is that?
But that activity occurs, We see it fairly often in some lakes. It seems to be that there's batches. It seems like, well, they did it, I'm gonna do it. Tends to grow in the challenge of regulating that. But, so some lakes I have absolutely no problems with. Because everybody says, oh, we know that's wrong, and they go talk to them on their own. Because the boating community in most lakes are pretty tight and know each other. And there is a lot of self-regulation that occurs. So I see that some places have no problems, where others have more problems because it was permitted and somebody else said, well, they did it, I'm gonna do it, and it just grows. So now you'll have to help reel that in if you can, but also saying, every time you see it, please call. And a call for service is placed in our system. The more of those numbers that we have, the more that we will send an officer to your lake to be a presence. We are short on officers, that's no excuse though, but we will make a concerted effort to say, you know what, we're going to spend at least 2 hours on every Saturday on your lake. We can make that, I can't guarantee it'll happen every Saturday, but we will make an effort to have a higher presence. And hopefully we can help that. Hopefully we catch at least somebody, we can have that conversation saying, oh, and then like, okay, I'm going to stop, and that then maybe has a ripple effect. No guarantees. But our presence does seem to help, but also.
Sure does.
Yeah, you see it.
They know when you're coming.
Yeah, you probably know if there's
For 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a hot day for 2 hours, nobody was on the lake, the marine patrol sat in the middle. That's not cool. But, so I'll tell you, little trick. If we get enough calls to a certain lake, we also can send undercover boats. Just so you know, we have them. They're out there. And on occasion, our officers take them out. Did you know that? No. There you go. I was wondering, I told him that.
So if you tow with a jet ski and I got a spotter on the back facing the other way, how many people can I have on the tube?
It's 2, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Max of 2 more?
Yeah, and then if you
Two
get a second spot, you have
two,
about 6.
so, sorry, we're to be clear. So,
2 spotters, max of 6, you said?
Yeah, so if you have one spotter and they're looking out the back, you can have 2 tubes out there total and 2 separate people if you wanted.
Yep.
And then anything beyond that number, two tubes max, right? 6 people total can be towed, and you need 2 spotters.
Okay.
You know, it's weird.
It's not a real tiered scenario.
Yeah, that's very strange. But yeah, if you have one person spotting, you can have 1 tube behind 2.
So if I'm towing with a ski, I need 2 people on the tube.
Yeah, a second.
If I'm towing my jet ski, I need
Right.
2 people on the tube on the side.
1 spotter.
Spotter.
You're all good.
And that's max.
Yeah.
That's the most you can do.
Yeah.
Sounds
Could
good.
you take in the, over, not over, all right. So frequent violations, I think we kind of touched base on some of these, especially the water, so we just hit that one, good job. The safe passage, you must have sort of a challenge with this on your lake, I imagine. You talked about that it's really tight, and it's really hard to see that this really works because there's so little space, but it really is, it's a law that is important because it helps keep everybody safe. And there's still a lot of confusion about really how the speed at which a vessel needs to slow down to. We're going to touch base on that in a minute, but making sure that they do that when they are close to another vessel. So, but I think it sounds like most people in the room understand safe passage and 150 feet from almost anything else. Another person, another swimmer, same thing. Another boat, whether it's a kayak or the land, or a swim dock, or a swim platform, or a dock. You have to, once you're within 150 feet or 50 yards, half a football field, if we think about football, you have to be down to that speed, headway speed. And headway speed is the slowest speed to the maintained steerage, which is different than no wake. All right. We see a lot of improper display this time of year. People have totally forgotten to put their decals on. And people also do this, we get the rainbow colors, but that doesn't happen as much. People are very proud about how many years they've had a boat. You can only show 1 decal a year. Okay. Well, you can't have, yes, we're gonna get into that. Okay, well done. Yes, but you can only show 1 decal a year at a time. There we go. Thank you. You helped me say it. Does everybody have a boat in the room? Or who has boats in the room? All right. Everybody's got their boat registered, I hope, if it's on the water. And you've all applied these new decals and said, anybody really want to know, do I have my reason why it's up there? Does everybody know why we end up doing this? For the most part? No? Okay. 2 years ago, the Marine Patrol gets a lot of its funding from the Coast Guard because they are a federal entity and that is how the funds are. The funds are sent to them and then distributed back out. So it's a federal entity that is bringing in and actually receives the money, most of the money from our registrations. There's a little part of your registration that goes to the state. Well, because those funds were being received at the same time, they were being considered to be commingled. And oddly enough, some people frown on that. For instance, our federal government. So when the Coast Guard determined through the audit that those funds were commingling, they said you can't do that anymore. So our legislation came up with a solution of saying, well, all the round money goes to the state, all the square money goes to the feds. And I think that's the simplest way to explain it. Other states have figured out a way through legislation and workings to still have one sticker. I hope that someday we'll get back to it, but I don't see it in the immediate future. Because it has confused everybody. And as officers, I will tell you, we are totally amused by all the amazing places that we have found the round sticker. Sorry, that's my only joke for the day. It's so funny.
That took so long to get the round sticker, that's not going to go away.
No, I don't think it's going to go away. So, yeah, this has been a very hard thing for people to follow, that there was a display in the show. So I think of it as a sentence starting with letters and ending with a period. You read left to right, and the period ends at the end, you'll be in good shape. The period's towards the stern on one side of the boat, and the other is towards the bow. All right. I'm touching base on some other new laws. Everybody have an electronic cutoff switch in their boat? One, two, yeah, imagine. Yeah. It is required by law now that you use it when you are going greater than head-based speed. And if this is new information, that's fine. If it's old, it actually is a law that was put in place last year, August 13th. It just hasn't been well pushed out there that it's out there, so please remind folks when they see this. So this actually came, the plan put this in place happened before that boat that was spinning rapidly around and went to stop. The big things that happened first and the law went in place. It was actually the opposite. So, but headway speed again is that slowest speed you can maintain steerage. 150 feet headway speed. So, question? Back to it? Yeah.
So, no back.
Oh, back. There was part of it. There we go.
Forward.
There we go. Yeah, oh, I didn't mention, it has to be 26 feet or less, because this law is also principal. Okay, go ahead.
So the next question, so my boat is an 89.
Right.
So I spent like $300 to have one put in. I guess I didn't. I mean, it's safe that I have one.
Yes. Yeah, you didn't have to have it. If a vessel does not have it, and it was built prior to the end of the year, 2020, then it doesn't have to be added. But if the boat has it, and there's lots out there from prior, I think we've all been operating, well, I've been operating a whaler that was built in the mid-70s. It was repowered, and that new ignition system has it. I must use it. It's there. If it's not there, prior to those years. Hardly, I don't think you're going to find any boats after 2020 that somebody could actually buy without having it in place. It was required. Touch base on this a couple times. No wake versus headway speed. So no wake truly is that you are slowed down to no wake. And headway speed is truly the slowest speed that you maintain steerage. There is no number value. There's a lot of confusion. Years ago in the legislation, there was actually a number, and it was for headway speed was less than 6 miles an hour. Every vessel is different, how it moves. That number has been gone for years, but a lot of people are like, wait, I'm going less than 6, I'm okay. No, it's individual to your vessel. And honestly, let's think about a personal watercraft. Their minimum speed is faster than most because of how their boat is propelled. So a lot of people get really mad. Like, well, why is that thing still going so fast? It's the slowest speed they can actually go to maintain steerage because it's jet propelled versus propelled. So it is different. You got to give them a little break for that. Sorry, I'm not always as kind to personal watercraft as I should. Sorry, it's not cool. I will admit it. I have a problem. Not everybody. They are fun. I'll admit it. A reminder about right-of-way. You know, a non-powered vessel will always have right-of-way over a power vessel. When you are head-on, you're coming towards each other. You must pass. You know, port to port. You're just going to go just like a road. You give ample room. You never cross paths. You don't ever try the other way. You always try to be It's common to put that. If you're being passed, the vessel that is passing you needs to give way to you. Just like if you're on the highway, it's like somebody else starts to move differently, you have to pay attention to that, because the person may not know that they're being passed. So they still have precedence over you. Don't ask me why, I think I forgot to get rid of something there. There's nothing to do with canvas and painting top color. Sorry about that. Emergency vehicles, you know, if we are operating in emergency status, or you get fire EMS out in your lake, their precedent can overtake everything else. They still need to give way to be smart and safe. They can't be dangerous in that way. But also remember, again, small lake, but this is a big problem in Winnipesaukee, that people don't always give way to vessels that are towing in a boat, because it turns that boat really into something that's 4 or 5 or 10 times the size of that boat. I mean, they don't have any maneuverability, so. All right, other common violations. Lighting issues. So when we run at night, we see so many people that run their lights either inappropriately, or they just don't have them on at all, or they have their docking lights on. Operating without a license or a valid boater's education certificate. Should call it that more often. It's not a license. It's a big problem. Honestly, the number of individuals that are operating or are underage without it, because they can't get it yet, is a concern. And we've seen that over and over with kids, that a parent has said, hey, it's just a PWC, go ahead have fun on it. They don't know how to operate it. It's like, I think it's almost as bad as being able to say, just go ride a motorcycle on the road without having an understanding how to ride it and have a license. I mean, they're that powerful and that quick. And it's so easy that they do the wrong thing. Boats are challenging too, but PWCs are scary. We just see so many that want to use them. Just last week, we ran into a whole family that had rented personal watercraft, and nobody in the family had a license to use them, or a certificate.
And that's the renter you ought to go after.
Yeah.
Not rent it.
Well, they made money, so.
Right.
They made money. And it was a little more complicated than that, but still, they just thought they could just go rent them and use them, and they should. So, and the renter was from out of state. It was a weird thing. Careless and negligent as officers, they've recently changed that law a little bit, and it gives us a little more fight if we ticket for that, or summons for it. Boating while intoxicated, we work on enforcing this really well, but it's hard. Usually, from an officer standing on the water to determine somebody's impaired, it's not like on the road where you can see somebody doing things odd. I mean, the boat's just moving funny ways to begin with, so it's not as easy to catch. But we've already had some good luck on the big lake this summer. So. And then conduct after an accident. You must report a boating accident. There's a whole other law piece, I'm not going to get into that, but it has to be reported. All right, other people, I'm not going to keep going. Lots of violation stuff here. Rafting, other places is something we deal with a lot up in Broad Bay. I meant to get rid of these, to be honest. This is deep. I'm not going to go deep into it. But I will remind you, if you have an accident, it needs to be reported. And I think, just a long list of our good stats for last year, all the things we did, all the warnings we gave, the number of summons. Some officers definitely write more tickets than others, number of arrests we had last year, and that's statewide. So in some ways you can say that's not a whole lot, and you're right. There's potential for more. All the things we investigated, water rescues, and then the fatalities that we investigate also. You must have owner's ed. We do a lot of continuing education. I'm just trying to get to the end. I probably have at the end here. We've talked about warning programs. I feel like I've gone a long time today, sorry.
You're good, you're good.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And we'll come to the end here, warning programs.
Can you put that back?
There we go. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna get the question.
I was wondering what the folks had in warning, just before this.
Oh, sorry. One more time.
You went quick.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, I did really fast. So these are the only lakes in New Hampshire that currently have mooring programs, or that are regulated by moorings. You can see they're larger. Again, we've had a lot of smaller lakes be interested in it, they just haven't been able to get all the way through the steps. So please reach out. You already said you've met Captain Dunleavy, or retired Captain Dunleavy. He's a great resource for this. So continue to reach back out to him. And he will walk your towns through it. Our office, we also have senior officers that will come out and do more presentations specifically about this to a community if they're really interested to help them move along. Okay?
No, I just want to see it.
No, it's not me. Really.
How many miles is this state?
All right, and then questions. There we go. And I think we've hit a lot, but does anybody else have stuff that they want to ask?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna go with him first, then you got to.
I have a boater license, but of course I got it many years ago, and I really can't even find my.
Oh, great question. How do I get another one? There you go. This is important, and I should have mentioned it in the boater's ed stuff too. So, if you lose your card, did you take it in New Hampshire?
Yes.
There you go. You'll have to remember this, but I lostmycard.com. It's actually a thing, and you then designate boating for New Hampshire, and you put in your name and your date of birth, and then pull it up. And you can download a PDF from that, or you can request a new hard copy for $10. This year, we now accept a PDF or a digital version. If we, for lack of a word, stop you, that is acceptable. Okay. So if that's all you want to have, I'm going to print it off, or I'm going to keep it on my phone. A lot of people do that. I will admit, I think Officer Blau was the same way. We don't love handling people's cell phones, because our biggest worry is that something happens and now they're lost. I've yet to do that, but I've only lost my stuff on the board, not somebody else's. Yes, great, thank you. That's an important one. Yes, all times that every stop that we enact requires asking for a voter's ed certificate at that time.
Okay.
What's that?
I don't have it on.
Oh, I don't have to see it.
How far are moorings need to be apart?
How far it needs to be, it can be determined by the environment and the other boats that are near it, and then how much land somebody has. So if it's a regulated scenario, that's all the pieces that play into it. So a
Non-regulated, it doesn't matter.
it needs to have proper swing and it'll still be navigated around if it's not a congregate field. If your town is determined that there's an area that you're calling a mooring area, it usually requires a permit, then you can have it so it's very tight. Other than that, you need to be able to navigate through it without any complications. So again, it sounds like you're pretty tight up there. All right. Sorry. We're almost done. I would love to give this away to anybody who has a family member or friend. This is a youth. We have a couple of these left out there, but they were through a program that we want to give them away and make sure that life jackets are being used. So if you have somebody at home, you know somebody, here's what I wish I had 5 of them. Please, the first person to come up and say, hey, I can use that, or I know somebody, please take it home with you. I'd love for that to go to a good place. It's being used instead of rolling around my cruiser or on my boat. I still have one.
What's the black one?
What's that black one? I got Sorry.
If somebody was using that life jacket, do they need to have a life jacket when they kayak?
Oh, so yeah, okay, question about kayaking. As long as you are over 13, the kayak either needs to be in the boat, in the vessel, or on you. So an adult, I'll be on the law in this case, calls you.
I like to sit outside.
Sitting on the vessel, you can reach it. That's all right. Yeah, it just needs to be on the vessel. So paddleboarding, kayaking, sailing, canoeing, all those crafts that is sail power or personal power, you need to have a life jacket for everybody that is doing the activity on the vessel. If they're less than 13, they must be wearing it, just like an arm. But I answered the question.
Even on the.
Okay. I thought I did.
Paddleboats, when you
Paddleboard, yes, please help people know that. They are very confused about that. They're like, wait, I need that? I said, yes, you do. You have to have it. Even though if you're right close to shore, as soon as they push away and they start paddling, they're a paddleboard. So that's it. Hold by that power.
I have one of the, I think it's a cartridge, you just pull it. Is that legal?
So that's a type 5, similar to what I wear. Somebody was asking me to take mine home, and I said no, or they wanted to know more about it. So type 5, these names are changing, but for a type 5 to count while you paddleboard, it must be clipped. So if it's a waist one, you've got to have it around your waist. You can't be on that type, can't be on the board. Is that clear?
So that's a life jacket?
This is like that.
Do you pull, what's this?
Yep, I can pull. Usually I have it tucked underneath. Also, if there's a dissolvable fuse, for lack of better words, if this touches the water barely any, it also goes off.
You mean like it's big?
One time use? No, actually, we can reuse it. The cartridge can be replaced. I can restuff it. Yeah, it's not, yeah, it's good.
I've heard problems with those of not discharging.
Haven't had any problems. We've had this problem. We had problems the other way, where they've been accidentally charged.
No, I was looking into them, and I was online reading about them, and then under the reviews, people were complaining that when they needed them, they didn't.
I haven't had that problem with us yet, but I'm not saying it couldn't be true. I will, I don't know, this is not my story, this is another officer's story to tell. I'll wander over here a little more. Please, if you have life jackets for either your use with being active, such as, you know, wakeboarding or any other water sport, or if you're wearing them even on your paddleboard, please make sure they are truly snug. Because what happens is, in an emergency, and you end up in the water, they end up way up high, they end up in funny places. We had two officers involved in a scenario that I think most people know about. One of our boats was overturned. They both ended up in the water. They ended up with their PFDs kind of in funny places for them. And it was a really good lesson learned to make sure it is pretty snug. Mine's, I was going to lose a little weight. It was tighter yesterday, swift. But really snug them up. It's so important because otherwise they really don't work right. So, and that's with all our jackets, is that if they aren't put on right and they're about to jump in the water, it won't do really much good. Yeah.
Two questions. Is that an adult size or is that child size?
That's a use. So yes, if you have somebody smaller size, please take it with you.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever been on North Woods Lawn?
No.
That's
all fishing game.
Yeah. Well, you'll see us. Sergeant Alley's been on there a bunch of times.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, Officer Allah has a little with us as long as I have, but we coordinate a lot of activities for the fishing game. They jump on, like my field boat a lot, in smaller bodies, we'll patrol it together. So that, yes, they're just as nice as they are on the TV show. They are super nice people.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah, if you never had a fishing game officer, I haven't enjoyed spending time with.
So you don't have to answer this, but how many times do you visit the lake per year?
Oh, your lake?
Yeah.
Oh man, your lake is, even though you're in my north of Concord region, you're actually falling to another officer's primary area. And so he said that you're seeing an officer once or twice a year.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, and it's probably smaller lakes, it's hard to get a lot more than that, just because of how short we are. But again, if you're seeing things of concern, please call. Just keep making those calls. It's not necessarily, it doesn't need to be a 911 call, it's our dispatch. So you want State Police Marine Patrol dispatch and say, I'm seeing this, will you put this in the log, will you place we call it a call for service, CFS, fire, EMS call them the same thing, they just call them calls, but still. And then it's in our log, and an officer that's reported to the officer that's primarily on your body of water, and that will help with enough calls. Doesn't take much, 2 or 3, it gets escalated to be like, yep, we need to get an officer out there more often. So please, if we don't know there's a problem, we can't do anything about it. So I strongly encourage you to call. And I guess you could say it's all Officer Hackman's fault. So please just say, Officer Hackman told us. That's all right. That's what happens when we put on top.
This has nothing to do with voting, so probably, but, the milfoil and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I do a lot of swimming
Mm-hmm.
at smaller lakes, and it's amazing how many more that. Is there a number that you can call to report that type of thing?
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have that perfect number for that. Great, thank you. But I will tell you, we could be considered some of the biggest contributors to that. And I want you to know that we try very hard to mitigate it. Because, as I said, I sometimes will visit as many as 7 lakes in a day, maybe more. And I make sure that I wash and I inspect after each time. Yes, it's my best that I can do. But there are times I'm going to call it a hot call. I got a 911 call, like I need to get that like now. Sometimes those steps are not perfect. And it's not to be disrespectful to anybody, because it is important. Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there a speed limit for the jet skis?
No. Only on the big lake. But Winnipesaukee is the only lake with a speed limit. Day and night. What is it?
It's 45 during the day, and then, what was it, 35?
25.
25, that's what it was.
He's great.
Yeah.
He's an A student. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky.
Giving out the dogs, one to stop you?
What's that?
Person for you, giving out the dogs?
Oh, yeah.
No matter where, I want to stop you. No matter where.
Oh, for the speed limit?
Oh, yeah, no matter where you're at. And then of course, like new bridges, you gotta cut down that.
Just, you know the bigger part of the lake, that's definitely the area.
Yeah, so that's 45 max.
At least you see boats going a lot with that.
Oh, yeah.
But 45 is fast.
And who got, somebody caught somebody at, it was 95?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that Cam?
Okay, it was Jones. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
You're that person I'll let you know, you're 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's-
there.
That's why I enjoy small lakes so much because, I mean, they're all fun, but, you know, I've got a boat that has reasonable speed to it. I'll run out of the lake before I run out of anything else, so I will end up having that conversation with somebody without much problem. You know, it's when they go into a group of people and you can't tell where the operator jumped to, went to, that can be a challenge, but usually people are pretty good about that. Usually, depending on the offense. Any other questions?
Well,
I do.
go ahead. Go ahead.
About the channel thing, when people dock in the public dock, that's like a small area or a narrow area where people put their boats in to go. And that is pretty shallow and late summer it's pretty shallower.
Okay.
And so I don't know if there's anything there. I don't put anything in, but I've been over there and I'm looking and I'm going, there's a few camps that are there and.
So if it's naturally a narrow area,
Yeah.
and already, it wouldn't, a channel is usually placed in a body of water that it looks like it'd be safe to go everywhere, but there's only one small area that you truly can navigate safely, it would be confusing to leave it unmarked. But if it's a narrow part of the lake that's already there, and an operator should know that they can't necessarily go to shore without.
If you go left, you're gonna end up in bad spots.
So, it does sound like there could be more, I'd have to see it, I don't know. But when we talk about channels, usually it's some ways that it's like this, that is determined as a channel.
Okay, I have a question about channels. You
Yeah,
said
yeah,
well, a landmass problem, rocks or something. What about vegetation?
Vegetation usually does not fall into the catch.
And the reason I ask that is we have some heavy milfoil, and one of our mitigating divers does this all the time. Said, because boats go through there and they chop it up, okay, you should get a channel in here to keep people. So what you're telling me is that really would not qualify for a channel.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, that's,
Again, a more senior officer may give you a different answer.
I'll believe you.
That's okay, I'm all right with it. I always need to learn. Exactly. So having the opportunity to do it.
All right.
Anything else?
How's it happen? How's it going?
One more question. What's the maintenance on that type of lake jacket to make sure it's gonna work with you?
We check it on a regular basis that the cartridge is still there, and then also that the CO2 cartridge is not compromised, and the CO2 cartridge is replaced every 2 years. Great question.
All right. Thank you.
Please, somebody take this.